Good morning, everyone. The time being 9 a.m. on Saturday, May 11th, 2024, I will call this annual town meeting to order. Good morning and welcome to the 2024 annual town meeting. It is a beautiful Saturday in May, so I think I know who the town meeting diehards are in this town. I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you who is here today. My name is Jim Salvi, 74 West Acton Road. I'm the town moderator, and I'll be presiding over today's meeting. As you all know, town meeting is where the town gathers as a legislature to govern its affairs, to appropriate funds, enact bylaws, and accomplish other tasks. Generally speaking, any resident who wishes to speak on a matter that is relevant to the meeting may do so, though they may have to wait for the appropriate time, and to encourage participation, no one can monopolize the floor. But before I get into some of the particular procedures in this meeting, let's keep in mind some simpler rules. Thankfully, in this location, food and drink is allowed, so it doesn't have to be the march through the desert that last year's town meeting was. There is no smoking on school grounds. Please turn off or mute your cell phone. And please pack out your trash. We don't have janitors on duty, and we're relying on you to take your trash with you. Let's talk about our most important function today, which is voting. Many, though not all, of our votes today will be using the clickers. The buttons labeled yes and no, or 1A and 2B, should be the only ones that work today. When your vote is recorded, the clicker will show a 1 or a 2 in the LCD window, and when it's recorded, it will say OK on the left side of that window. Please look for the OK. That's how you know that your vote was recorded. I will tell you for how long the voting window is open. The last button that you press during that window will be the vote that is recorded. So you can change your mind, or if you make a mistake, you can change your vote, and that's all right. If you have any trouble with the clickers, please go to one of the tellers and tell them that. The clickers should work in this entire room, but only in this room. So if you go outside, if you go elsewhere in the school, they will not work there. On votes that require a simple majority and that I don't think will be controversial, I may call for the use of our old-fashioned cards. I think we all remember how to vote. If I could find mine, I would demonstrate, but I can't. There it is. We just hold it up to vote. If a vote is closer than I anticipated, I'll still make the call about whether it passes or not, but my call can be challenged by 7 voters standing. And if that happens, we'll just take another vote using the clickers. Let me introduce the cast of characters that's here today on the stage with me. Town Clerk Linda Hathaway, Assistant Town Clerk Deb Seith, I think, is over by the tellers. Town Council Robin Stein, and Town IT Director Ron Eld. We will also need a deputy moderator for those articles where I want to take a break or can't preside. The charter says that the moderator nominates someone and town meeting gets to vote on that nomination. And let's use this, please, as a chance to test our clickers. So I will nominate Lisa Lavina of Gleasondale Road as deputy moderator. I don't think I need a second, but can I get one anyway? Thank you. This requires a simple majority. Clickers, voting will be open for 10 seconds starting now. Still working on it. All right, we're going to do this vote by cards instead. All those in favor of Lisa Lavina as Deputy Moderator, please raise your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. Congratulations, Lisa, and thank you all. On the floor in front of me is the Select Board and the Town Administrator. Board Chair Courtney Freisha, members Ingeborg Hegeman-Clark, Hector Constanzos, Megan Birch-McMichael, and J.T. Toole, and of course the Town Administrator, Denise Demkoski. The warrant contains recommendations from the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee is an independent committee established by the Charter to review all warrant articles and make recommendations to town meeting. They are seated in the audience, I believe. I'd appreciate if they would raise their hands when I introduce them. Finance Committee Chair Brian Picciuto, members Kevin Gross, Evgenia Petrova, Dan Peterson, and Angela Zhang. And we'll also be hearing from the Capital Planning Committee with recommendations on capital items. They are also seated in the audience, Chair Steve Jelinek, and members David Arsenault, Ed DeLuca, Brian Picciuto from the FinCom, Select Board member J.T. Toole, and Associate member Missy Reed. I do enjoy pointing out that persons who live out of town do not have a right to address town meeting, but can do so if town meeting votes to allow them to do so, and the town meeting time refers to out-of-towners as strangers. So on the slide in front of you are several strangers who we may benefit from hearing from today, town employees, school employees, and town council. So I will make a motion to allow these strangers to address us. Can I get a second? Thank you. Ron, can we use this as a test? Yes. Okay. This is on out-of-towners. Voting will be open for 10 seconds beginning now. Go ahead, try it now. I take it that at least some people saw okay. All right, let's go to another vote by cards. I apologize for this while we figure this out. All those in favor of allowing the strangers to address us, please raise your cards. Thank you, and those opposed. Thank you, the motion passes. What you will be voting on today will be the main motions under each article, which usually will be made by a member of the Select Board. These main motions are allowed to differ a little bit from the warrant. The warrant articles are really just notice of what might be voted on. However, I don't anticipate that any main motions at this town meeting will vary significantly from the warrant. Nonetheless, please pay attention to the motion that is made, not so much the warrant article. Now, as you might imagine, trying to have an organized conversation among a whole lot of people requires some ground rules. Town meeting is governed by a small procedural manual called Town Meeting Time, a copy of which is in the library, also by our bylaws and traditions. Over time, the moderators of the Stow have gathered the most important of these rules into a 14-page handbook. That handbook is available on the town's website under the town meeting and moderator pages, and there are also, I believe, 10 hard copies available at the tellers if you want to consult one. I am only going to cover the highlights of our rules here. Of course, there's no cheering, booing, or other verbal outbursts except as I may direct to recognize accomplishments. No one speaks unless recognized by the moderator, but to be recognized by the moderator is very easy. You go to the microphone and you wait your turn. When it's your turn, you say your name, your street, and you address all your remarks to me, not to anyone else, by starting with Mr. Moderator. We will have a time limit of 2 minutes per question or comment. 2 minutes is a very long time. Please think about the few times that you have actually listened to your dentist and brushed your teeth for a full 2 minutes. It is forever. Speakers can have one 1-minute follow-up after they receive a response to their question. Repeated questioning until you receive an answer that you think is satisfactory will not be allowed. However, if you receive an answer to your question that you don't think is responsive, you can use your follow-up to indicate that or ask it again. Please keep your remarks confined to whatever motion is pending at that moment, or you risk being ruled out of order. Please use only language that you would use if your mother were here. And please, no attacks on personalities. Let's be rigorous on the issues, but gentle on the people. Please also put any amendments to motions that you intend to offer in writing on a form that's available from the clerk and maybe from the tellers. It does help tremendously when I have to review it to make sure it's within scope. If you have procedural questions during the meeting, please try to get the attention of Deputy Moderator Lisa Lavina and ask her your question rather than interrupt the proceedings. If it's something that she thinks I should know about or everyone should know about, she will let me know. In Stow, our tradition has been to allow debate to proceed for 30 minutes, at which time I'll entertain a motion to call the question if there is one. Calling the question means to end debate. If you think you've heard enough before 30 minutes has expired, you can still call the question. But if I don't think the issues have been aired sufficiently or that a significant number of people are waiting to speak, I might ask you to renew that motion after 30 minutes has expired. That ends my discussion of the rules. Before we begin, I just want a few recognitions. As you'll see on the following slides, we lost a number of former employees and committee members in the past year, including several long-term town volunteers and others who devoted substantial time to the service of the town. Please join me in a moment of silence in memory of all these individuals who we lost in the past year. Thank you. On a much different and personal note, I'd like to recognize that Jody Newman, the wife, I'm so sorry. That Jody Newman, the wife of former moderator Ed Newman, is soon to be leaving town after 48 years in Stow. Jody was on the Ancient Documents Committee for a very long time, and she's a pillar in this community. But I think her most important contribution was the support that she gave Ed during his tenure as moderator. She did much of the work the town staff now does for me, and at meetings took detailed notes of who spoke, for how long, what motions were made, so Ed could review them later, because the moderator leaves here with a very fuzzy memory of what occurred. She's also been a great friend, a mentor, and a sounding board for me since I got this position 2 years ago, and I will miss her very much. I don't even know if she, well, I do know she's here today, I saw her. I'd like to ask her to stand and receive the recognition that she deserves. Thank you. A few reminders. Please remember to vote at the polls next weekend, including to vote on the 13 proposed charter changes. You may remember that town meeting passed those proposed changes at the last 2 town meetings, but those changes are not final until passed by the voters at the polls, so please remember to vote. And many thanks to the Charter Review Committee for seeing this long process to its end. The town's Comprehensive Plan Committee is making every effort to collect residents' opinions as part of their effort to draft the new comprehensive plan. Please let your voice be heard. I believe they have a presence here in the lobby. So please stop by. They can tell you how to participate. It is not too late to do so. There is I want to thank a group of local parents who have organized a Kids Town meeting again this year for kids ages 4 to 11. I don't even know where it is. It's in this building somewhere. Denise, do you know where the Kids Town meeting is? In the library. Kids are welcome to stay here. I don't see any, but kids are welcome to stay here as well. But if squirminess or vocalized unhappiness occurs, and I'm talking about the children here, and starts to interfere with the ability of others to participate, please take advantage of the services that have kindly been offered. This meeting is being recorded by Stow TV and will be broadcast on cable. And many special thanks to all those who pulled this town meeting together, especially Stow TV, the IT department, the town clerk's office, all of our checkers, Lisa Lavina, technical volunteer Kate West, the town administrator, and the select board office. And finally, I have to note, I'm forced to note that I've been experiencing a health issue recently that can result in sudden vertigo attacks. So if you see me taking more frequent breaks than usual, or if you see me do a moderator swap out in the middle of a sentence, don't be alarmed. It's fine. You're in good hands. And with that, we are ready for our first motion. Ms. Freisha.
Mr. Moderator, I move the reading of the warrant and return of the constable thereon to be waived, but made a part of the record of this meeting, and that the moderator be permitted to refer to each article by subject matter instead of reading each article in its entirety.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to dispense with the reading of the warrant by the moderator. This dispenses with a tradition that I think dates back to the time when the warrant was not as widely distributed, and passage would probably be a favor to all of us. We will use our cards on this, which requires a simple majority. All those in favor of waiving reading of the warrant, where's your cards? Thank you. Those opposed? And the motion passes. I'm ready for a motion on Article 1, reports of Select Board and other officers and committees.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town accept the reports of the Select Board and other officers and committees of the town as printed in the 2023 Annual Town Report.
Second.
This article and its motion accepts the reports that are part of the written annual town report from standing committees. It requires a simple majority. We'll use our cards. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed. And it passes. Mr. Toole, can I have a motion on Article 2, reports of special committees?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town accept the reports of the special committees as printed in the 2023 Annual Town Report.
Thank you. This motion does the same thing as Article 1, though with regard to special committees, that ad hoc committees, building committees, maybe the charter review committees, things like that. Requires a simple majority vote, and we can use our cards. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed. Thank you. Motion passes. That brings us to Article 3. I am going to recuse myself from Articles 3 and 4 because my wife is an employee of the town, and turn the chair over to Deputy Moderator Lisa Lavina. I'll take it.
Morning, everybody. I'm ready for a motion on Article 3, Mr. Costanzas.
Madam Moderator, I move that the town amend Article 11 of the general bylaws of the town personnel administration by deleting from Section 20H the existing salary schedules and inserting in place thereof the new schedules A, B, C, and D as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We're going to use our clickers for this vote. Oh. Okay, so we're going to use cards. All those in favor, raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. On to Article 4. Ms. Fresha.
Madam Moderator, I move the town raise and appropriate the sum of $34,778,148 as recommended by the town administrator for items 1 through 80 inclusive, as printed in the warrant under column entitled FY 2025 Budget Town Administrator Recommend. Each item to be considered a separate appropriation for the purposes designated and the same to be expended only for such purposes.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We have some presentations in advance of the article or voting on the motion, starting with the Finance Committee.
Good morning. My name is Brian Patuto. I'm the chair of your Finance Committee. And I work with Kevin Gross, Evgenia Petrova. Chris Buck has resigned as of prior to this meeting, as well as Angel Zhang. Members are appointed by the town moderator. There are 5 voting members for the committee. There are positions for 5 associate members, which are non-voting members, but we do invite members who are interested to join us because extra voices equal better representation within the town. For the fiscal 25 recommended expenditures, we are just north of $41 million. That is the anticipated revenue for the town. A chunk of that is going to increase the funding of our stabilization account. Now, stabilization account is what we can consider a rainy day fund. This is not a nice to have. This is what buffers us against unanticipated expenses that the town incurs over time. And if you notice, we're going to continue the trend of increasing investment in this to increase the solvency of our town. This is one of the reasons why we have such a good bond rating and are able to borrow at such a low interest rate. In addition to that, we have our capital stabilization account, which is what we use for unanticipated capital expenses. This is also increasing. The final the final article of funding is our continued investment in OPEB trust funds. This is a financial liability that the town incurs over time as a commitment that we have made to the post-employment benefits of our town employees. These are things that are not directly tied to things like pensions. This is health care and other services that we as a town commit to our town employees after they are done servicing the town. Keeping this funded at approximately 20% is our target right now is very important to the long-term financial health and stability. Our recommended expenditures for the town, as we just heard from our lovely select board member, are primarily dedicated to education, followed by public safety, and then our general budget. As you can see here, education is the single biggest contributor to our annual budget expenditures. The major budget drivers in change of our budget this year are shifting expenses previously funded through ARPA over to the general fund, as well as increases in the IT expenditures and the procurement and grants administrator's salary. And of course, as is usually the case, Neshoba makes a big chunk of this, and a big proportion of that change can be seen behind me. Finally, you will find all of our recommendations to each article in the warrant listed therein. And if you have any questions on why we made those recommendations, you are welcome to ask that. But understand that we have been deliberating over these for several months now. We have open meetings usually every other Tuesday throughout budget season, and we invite you all to participate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Patuto. Next, we have a couple of budget presentations from the school districts, beginning with Kurt Downing for the Neshoba Regional School District.
Thank you very much for the recognition. I am Kurt Downing, lead stranger for the Neshoba Regional School District. I'm Kurt Downing, lead stranger for the Neshoba Regional School District, otherwise known as the superintendent. I'm joined with Ross Mulcairn, our finance and operations director. We're bringing a budget forward to you this year after what was a very, if you will, strained budget season. But we think we put together a very responsible budget that has an operational increase of 3.52%. But I will turn it over to Mr. Mulcairn to review those numbers with you.
Thank you. Last time I was on this stage, I was banging a tambourine and singing the Center School Spirit song. So it's good to be back. So just to give you an overall picture of our budget this year relative to our FY24 voted budget, there is that 3.52% increase on the operating budget. Some of the factors that impacted our budget planning this year are the Chapter 70. We got the minimum increase on our Chapter 70 state aid this year per pupil. We were one of 212 districts in the Commonwealth that received that news. Previous years, we'd be receiving anywhere between $600 to $1 million extra per fiscal year on state aid, and that formula impacted us this year along with most of the other school districts in the Commonwealth. So that was one thing that we factored in and had to approach on the revenue side as we planned. Also, the increased inflation factors that are now materializing themselves within the public sector. We've done a really great job, I think, on the utility side. Mr. Frieswick is here. We've done a lot of collective bidding as part of collaboratives on our utilities, and we've been able to forecast and pre-plan quite a bit on that and protect ourselves from sensitivities of markets. And then we obviously have our contractual obligations that we have within our collective bargaining units. Also, we had a really close lens on the new debt that came on board in our FY25 assessments relative to the construction at the high school, which I'll talk about a little bit more. Some positives that we faced this year is we had some really good collaboration with our collective bargaining units over health insurance. I think health insurance costs are a headline, particularly in the public sector right now, and we did a great job of working together to make sure that we made some plan changes that actually decreased our premiums going into next year. We've pulled a lot of contract levers relative to some things like our special education transportation with new contracts that will benefit us and not see such an increase as we anticipated. Also, I want to recognize the work of the OPEB Management Advisory Committee, which in Stow was led by and participated on by Scott Powell, who's a school committee member. I know that Mr. Petruto just put up I think a pretty informative slide about OPEB, and I think the term 20% was used. The school district's currently around 1%. So we're setting some targets and doing some annual increases to our OPEB liability trust to offset that with the hopes of getting our percentage up a bit. And that will be reviewed every 3 years relative to what's happening within the school district. But we finally have an OPEB practice in some guidelines within our school district. So thank you to Mr. Scott Powell. Okay, next slide, please. So relative to debt service, the first three have been on the books. That top one is the last renovation for Neshoba Regional High School. FY25 is the last payment for that. So timing is good here. The track and field will come off the books in FY28. We do have a stabilization account, which we put money in every year so that we're able to do track resurfacing, and also at some point the sheet of turf will be replaced. The leach field and fuel storage, which was an issue several fiscal years ago, that's a short-term borrow, but those things need to be upgraded per DEP compliance, so that's part of it. So to the high school new construction, we did do a bond advisory group to provide us with some direction and strategy and some input and feedback on our bond strategy. I would like to thank Denise Domkowski for being on that. She was a very helpful member, as well as Chris Buck, former FinCom member, and Scott Powell, again, from school committee for being on that advisory. We went with a $30 million borrow. We anticipated originally to have to borrow about $176 million. After the MSBA state grant came through, we now only need to borrow approximately a total of $160 million. So we've done 30 of that to make sure that our cash flow needs are taken care of within the first calendar year of construction, as well as the market conditions that were there. Sort of once I'm done through our town meetings, we'll be putting that bond advisory group back together to look at the next stage of borrowing, which again will depend on where our cash flow needs are and also what market conditions are at the time. So what's that? Okay, our capital debt total for next year is just over $2.6 million. Denise, we go to the next slide. So how does this materialize to Stow through the regional agreement assessments? Your operating assessment is just over 2.68%. And again, that's factored in because of the 5-year rolling average of Stow students within the district. The capital debt assessment, which is based on your enrollment at the high school on October 1 of the current year, which assesses the next fiscal year for FY25, is $968,000, and again, that's up significantly because of that new bond for the high school. And then your total assessment is up 6.67. We worked really hard with our town administrators and getting feedback from our FinComs across the 3 towns this year, and we feel like we're in a good place relative to what's happening in the world with costs, and also being fiscally responsible with the overall objective of making sure we can deliver on our mission and vision for every student within the district and providing an excellent education. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Next, we have a presentation from Kevin Mahoney and Alice DeLuca for Minuteman Regional School District.
Madam Moderator, Kevin Mahoney, Interim Superintendent, Minuteman Regional High School, joined by Alice DeLuca, our school committee representative from the town of Stow, and Nikki Andre, the business manager. It's our pleasure this morning to offer a few comments on the Minuteman budget and assessment to the town of Stow for fiscal year 2025. Our overall budget is for FY25, operating capital, $31,517,219. That's about 3.96% over FY24. And in terms of actual dollars, it's roughly $1.2 million over FY24. As we look at the budget summary, when we focus on the operating side only, it's just under 3% at 2.99. Our capital recommendation of 1.6 is up 34%. There's a significant increase in our capital stabilization that I'll talk about in later slides. And our building project debt is about 1.36% over FY25. Now that our debt for our building project is issued, for the most part, 95% of it, we'll see some stabilization on that line item as we project out into the future. As we look at total assessments to our member towns, $25,689,000. That's 0.82% over FY '24. That is lower than what it would typically be. We had some anomalies in this budget year that caused that to be a little lower. So I don't want that to be the expectation that that trend will continue moving forward. But as we come here today, the assessment to the town of Stow that we're seeking your affirmative action on this morning is $2,754,051. That's about just under 7% increase over FY '24, and in real dollars, it's an increase of about $179. As we break down that preliminary assessment based on the assessment categories that we use pursuant to our regional agreement, the numbers that tend to jump out are the minimum required contribution, the top line number of $1,253,411. That number is determined by the state using the Chapter 70 state aid formula and primarily driven by enrollment. That's about 46% of the assessment. The other number I'd like to point out is the building project debt service number of $532,372. That number is exempt from the tax levy based upon a debt exclusion override that the town approved. So when we look at assessment trends over the last number of years, you could see there's been a significant increase to the town of Stow. Because as we've seen, the assessment increase primarily correlates with the 4-year rolling average. It's important to note that enrollment over the last 7 years of Stow students attending Minuteman has been extraordinary. It's been over 5 times what it was 7 years ago, from 15 students then to about 72 now. We're projecting 76 coming through the door in September. So we've seen that extraordinary enrollment growth, and that has also translated in terms of assessments. We do expect, based upon the number of accepted students coming in this year, we'll see an increase in the 4-year rolling average, but it won't be quite as dramatic as we've seen over the last number of years. It'll be closer to 14%. But again, it's a correlation of the number of students that we're receiving from Stow. Just as we talk a little bit about some of the budget drivers in our budget, some of the salaries, we're funding our collective bargaining. We're in a year 2 of a 3-year contract with a 3.5% increase plus steps and lanes. We did cut a couple of administrative positions and added back a couple of positions that we funded from grants during COVID that offered direct support to students' services. We had to add a foreign language teacher this fiscal year as a result of enrollment increases. We're going to maintain that position, and we add an athletic trainer to comply with our MIAA requirements and support our student athletes. Others is transportation costs based upon our bus transportation contract. Plus, we've added an additional after-school day so students could take advantage of after-school activities. Utilities, we've seen a decrease in our utilization in part due to implementation of solar-related paneling at the school. Our health insurance, we too, is similar to Neshoba. We're fortunate this past year. We expected a 10% increase FY '24. It turned out to be a 0 increase. So by being able to level fund that into FY '25, we don't see the funding shock of what happens in some of the other municipalities. We're also investing in cybersecurity. We're very concerned and aware of that issue. That's
You have about
ongoing.
1 minute.
Thank you. Other budget drivers is our funding for our capital stabilization. I mentioned earlier that we had an increase in capital. It's typically we'd fund $500,000. We're adding an additional $350,000 to that for a total of $850,000. Again, committing to our capital similar to the town. Debt service, our athletic fields are funded by our revolving account, so there's no impact on assessments. And our OPEB, we're also funding a little bit higher. We're about 5.1% funding. Just a quick note on our enrollment. We're at 609 86, of which 649 are member towns. You'll see that there's a significant decrease in our non-resident students. Stow, 72 students now, 76 anticipated next year. And as we see the shift in enrollment, as we see less non-member town students coming to Minuteman, without having that revenue to offset assessments, that'll then be shifted to member towns. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahoney, and I'd like to take a minute to thank you for returning from your retirement to serve in your interim position.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so to recap, we have a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. We've heard from all of our presenters. So the way we move through the general budget is I'm going to go page by page and call out the item numbers. If you would like to hold on any line item, please, you can stay in your seat, but be very loud and say hold, and we will hold the discussion for those until the end. We'll take a vote at the end on everything after the discussions have concluded. Everybody got their warrant? Okay. So line items 1 through 9. Hold 7. Line items 10 through 18. No holds. Line items 19 through 27. No holds. Line items 28 through 35. Hold 31. Hold 34. Line items 36 through 42. No holds. Line items 43 through 49. Hold 47. Line items 50 through 56. Hold 56. Line items 57 through 62. No holds. Line items 63 through 69. No holds. Line items 70 through 75. No holds. And line items 76 through 80. Okay, great. So we'll go back and start discussion. First on line item number 7. If you have questions, please approach the microphone.
My question on line item 7 is that this is essentially a new position. It's not a new position, but it was funded with ARPA funds before for $76,000. I'd like to know how much grant money has been brought in by the person who's been doing this, and why couldn't it be done by the existing staff as it has been done in the prior to using ARPA funds to hire this position a couple of years ago?
I'll ask the town administrator to address that.
So the position is procurement and grants. Probably 90% of the job is procurement, which I've stated in the past was not done previously. We were not going out to bid in accordance with Mass General Law. We were not signing contracts for every purchase over $10,000. This position came in and has now taken that off all departments so that we're actually procuring things legally and in accordance with the law. As far as grants, she's the administrator, she's not a grant writer. So she helps departments, she assists with grants, applications. She assisted with the $500,000 Green Communities grant we got with the library project. She's assisted on police grants, and she's applied for a number of other grants across the board, facilities, ADA grants, et cetera. But I would say 90% of her position is procurement.
Why couldn't that be done with the current staff? The spending that we have right now is more than twice as much as it was a couple of years ago. We have an assistant town administrator, we have other staff. Why can't it be done? Why do we need another $76,000 plus benefits position to do this?
So why wasn't it done a few years ago? We had all the same staff other than the assistant town administrator who focuses primarily on human resources, which was never done in the past. So these are positions that we did not have. Things were not being done legally and in accordance with the law. So we brought in positions to make us in compliance and make sure that all contracts are done correctly, all procurements and bids are done accurately.
Any other questions on line item 7? Thank you. Now we'll go to line item 31.
Deerfield Lane. I'm just curious as to why the town administrator recommended is higher than what the budget department requested.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So after we went through the budget process, I granted an additional step increase to the planning director for all the work that her and her department have done throughout the last year.
Thank you.
Any other questions for 31? Line item 34. Any questions for the hold on line item 34? No.
Are these multiple employees?
Can you tell us your name
Yeah,
and?
Dave Arsenault, 12 Hastings. Is these for multiple employees?
Yes.
How many?
So we have, this pays a large portion of the assistant facilities director, and then we have 2 full-time custodians and a part-time custodian.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions on 34? We have one person coming up.
Marianne Sharon, 33 Francis Circle. In the past, it was reviewed that the custodial services were going to be outsourced. I'd like to know what has happened with that, if it did, if it's come back, what the results are.
So actually, that predated me. I've never heard that, so I can't answer that question.
Okay. Is this something that will be reviewed in the future?
At this point, I have no intention to review outsourcing that.
Any other questions on line item 34? Okay, moving on to the hold on line item 47.
Ann Buck, Deerfield Lane. Kind of the same question as to why the recommended amount is higher than the request.
So as we go through the budget process, we discuss different options for departments. The highway department is one that through the charter question would consolidate to be a formal DPW. So when we're going through the budget process, we decided to upgrade the administrative assistant position to a business manager. We eliminated the assistant superintendent, and we added in a part-time mechanic. So the net of those increased a little bit to what was initially requested by the department.
Thank you.
Any other questions for number 47? Okay, we'll move on to line item 56.
It's me again with the same question.
So 56 and 57 go hand in hand. In the past, our ACO services, we were under a regional agreement with the town of Boxborough. The wages for that were paid under the expense line because we paid the town versus the person. We are separating the agreement from Boxborough and contracting directly with the same ACO that we've always had, but she will now be paid under a salary line instead of an expense line. So we just took the money and moved it from one line to the other.
Thank you.
Any other questions on 56? Okay, so that brings us to the end of the holds. So we will now use our clickers to take a vote on Article 4. All right, we're going to give it a go. We'll give you 20 seconds, beginning now. No, no, it is. Okay, so we'll switch to cards. Everybody's clickers are working. It's not showing up in the tabulation. So, all those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you very much. All those opposed? Passes overwhelmingly. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn this back over to Jim.
Thank you, Lisa. So for those of you who subscribe to the school of thought, can you hear me? Okay. To those of you who subscribe to the school of thought that things were better back in the good old days, I just want to tell you that at the 1974 annual town meeting, so 50 years ago, consideration of the budget took the entire first night and into the second night, so at least 4 hours, probably closer to 5. The entire town meeting took 4 full nights from 7:30 to 11, so that's about 14 hours. So in an effort not to beat that record, let's keep going. That brings us to the consent calendar of Articles 5 through 35. The consent calendar is a group of articles that experience has shown should not be controversial and can be dealt with effectively through one combined motion without debate. The last 2 articles in this year's consent calendar are new because those 2 things, additions to the stabilization fund and the capital stabilization fund, now require only majority votes. Any resident, of course, has a right to debate a consent calendar article if they want to, so here's what we're going to do. After the consolidated motion is made by a member of the select board, I will read each article number and the title of the article and wait a second. If you want to debate that article, please shout "hold" in a clear and loud voice. If I hear a hold, I will ask you if it's a quick question or a subject for discussion. A quick question is something factual, like a date or a number that can be dealt with quickly. A question like, why do we do this, or what is this for, is a very good question, but that's more like a subject for discussion. Please err on the side of subject for discussion if you're not sure. Anything held will be dropped from the consolidated motion and debated and voted individually. And with that, Ms. Birch McMichael, I am ready for the consolidated motion.
Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator, I move that the annual town meeting approve Articles 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35 as printed in the warrant without debate on any such articles. And provided that upon the request of any voter at this meeting made before the vote is taken on this motion, an article shall be dropped from the consent calendar and shall be acted upon in the ordinary course and order of business at this town meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Birch McMichael. I assume everyone heard the motion. Your Finance Committee recommendations are in the warrant. I believe that they recommend passage of all. I will now read each article and the title. As soon as I get a pen. Article 5, Revolving Fund Expenditure Limits. Article 6, Stow Cultural Council. Article 7, Smart 911 Rave Notification System. I think I heard a hold on Article 7. Article 8, Weights and Measures Testing. Article 9, Transfer to Conservation Fund. Article 10, Transfer from Wetlands Protection Fund. Article 11, Addition to Conservation Fund. Article 12, update of property valuations. Article 13, highway road machinery, private ways, and municipal parking lots. Hold on 13. Article 14, highway engineering fees. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. The person who held Article 7, is that a quick question or a subject for discussion? Okay, you can proceed. Go to the microphone, please.
Is this a commitment?
Who are you?
Sorry, Allison Doucette, 30 CrossFit. Is this a commitment to do this year after year, or a test of this system?
That'll be for discussion. Thank you. You can bring it up when we go to discussion. Same thing for Article 13. Is that a quick question or a subject for discussion? Thank you very much. I believe I was on Article 14, highway engineering fees. Article 15, household hazardous waste collection. Article 16, municipal solid waste disposal. Article 17, Stow TV expenses. Article 18, holiday decorations and lighting fund. Article 19, audit of financial records. Article 20, water system expense. Was that a hold? That was a hold, and is that a quick question or a subject for discussion?
This is David Gray, 12 Pine Point Road. I understand this is for water system testing of water quality. I just want to know where is the budget for PFAS treatment?
That'll be a subject for discussion.
Okay.
Article 21, Select Board Small Purchase Fund. Article 22, Construction and Maintenance of Water Holes for Firefighting Operations. Article 23, Replacement of Personal Protective Equipment for Structural Firefighting. Article 24, Lake Boone Water Quality Remediation. Article 25, Planning Board Engineering Consulting Expenses. Article 26, Community Preservation Administration Expenses. Article 27, Community Preservation Reserves. Article 28, Veterans Benefits. Article 29, Online Budgeting Software. Article 30, Traffic Safety Advisory Funds. Article 31, MS4 Stormwater Permit Requirement. Article 32, Legal Services. Article 33, Transfer to OPEB Trust Fund. Article 34, Transfer to Stabilization Fund. And Article 35, Transfer to Capital Stabilization Fund. Thank you. I have holds only on Articles 7, 13, and 20. Are there any others? Last minute hold is fine. Seeing no others. We are ready for a vote on the consolidated motion that Ms. Birchby-Michael made on Articles 5 through 35, except that Articles 7, 13, and 20 have been dropped from that motion. We will use our cards, and this requires a simple majority. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. And those against. Thank you. The consolidated motion passes. And now we'll now go to each of the individuals that were held. Article 7. Please go to the microphone. Oh, I'm so sorry. Wait, you can go to the motion, or you can go to the microphone, but I do need a motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town approve Article 7 as funding therefore to raise, and funding therefore to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,000 to be added to any balance remaining from previous appropriations for the purpose of paying for townwide telephone emergency notification system known as Smart 911 Rave, including all costs incidental and related thereto.
Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. Like I said, the Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant. Ma'am, now's your time.
Hope I can do this correctly. Mike, can you guys hear me now?
I think you have to speak a little closer to the mic.
Allison Doucette, 30 Cross Street. My question is this a repeatable expense? There are towns that have spent money on this and discovered it's underuse, and then have a very difficult time getting out of the arrangement. So I'm trying to understand, is this for this year, and is it a commitment to this system and to pay for it continually going forward?
Would the town administrator like to answer that question?
Yes. This is an annual cost, so we can get out of it anytime we'd like. We only contract on a yearly basis.
Any further debate on Article 7? Sir?
Mike Sadler from 27 Kirkland Drive. So I worked for 9 years for Rave's biggest competitor, and I'd like to speak in support of this, although I'd rather it was the different company. This is one of those systems which saves people's lives. It's the one that can tell people there is an odorless gas leak. It's the one that can tell you there's an active shooter in Shaw's. It's the one that can tell you there is a high-speed chase coming through Stow and to bring your children inside. So these are one of those systems that people wish they had bought after they don't have them. And $6,000 spread across the town is a very, very small price to pay to save an individual's life, because nobody wants to lose a kid, a significant other, a friend to something we could have prevented.
Thank you. Is there any further debate on Article 7? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. This requires a simple majority. We'll use our cards. All those in favor of the motion on Article 7, raise your cards. And thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. Article 7 passes. Going to Article 13, do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town approve Article 13 as funding therefore to raise and appropriate the sums of money for Highway Department purposes as set forth in the schedule below. For the road machinery account, $90,000. For repairs on private ways, $15,000. For repairs on municipal parking lots, $10,000.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded under Article 13. And as I said, your Finance Committee recommendation is in your warrant. Do we have debate on Article 13? Whoever held it?
Dave Arsenault, 12 Hastings. Number one, on the road machinery account, isn't that under the operating budget?
Yes, Ms. Town, Ms. Demkowski.
It is not. This is for larger expenses related to repairing the machinery. We don't have that under the operating budget.
Okay. And then number two, when did we start repairing on private ways?
So this falls under our bylaws. This is for pothole maintenance and minor repairs that the bylaws allows us to do. We've been doing that for years.
On private ways?
Yes, but we can only fill potholes and do minor repairs.
Yeah, there's a limit to what you can do.
Yes.
Got it.
Is there any further debate on Article 13? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. This requires a simple majority. Use cards. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Article 13 passes. Article 20, do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town approve Article 20 and as funding therefore to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 to be added to any balance remaining from the previous appropriations to be expended by the facility manager for the purpose of paying expenses related to the operation of the town's public water supply systems.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded under Article 20, Finance Committee recommendation in your warrant. And can whoever held Article 20 approach the microphone?
Yeah, David Gray, Pine Point Road, and I wanted to know, I thought this was just for monitoring the wells, which is a requirement. Is this also for maintenance to replace the carbon filters to remove PFAS?
Ms. Demkowski?
So no, so we still have money in the PFAS articles that we've approved over the last few years that we're using for the remediation. This money is for, under DEP requirements, to have someone come out. Right now, they're testing, I believe it's twice a week, and with the new filtration system that we're putting in, we're actually gonna need increased testing. This covers the public water system at the town building and at Pompacitic at Community Center.
Got it, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there any further debate on Article 20? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. This requires a simple majority using our cards. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. Article 20 passes. And that is the conclusion of the consent calendar. Thank you. That brings us to the capital requests of Articles 36 and 37. The capital requests, as they have been in the past, I think since last year, are divided between those proposed to be paid for out of free cash. Those are in Article 36. And the one item proposed to be paid for out of borrowing, which is in Article 37. The proposed borrowing does not include a debt exclusion. We first have a procedural motion with regard to Article 36. Mr. Toole?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town discuss the items of this article individually and vote upon each separately as to the amount to be appropriated for each item, as set forth in separate motions opposed.
Motion made and seconded. I think you figured out this allows us to consider each subpart of 36 as though it's a separate article. Is there any debate on the procedural motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. Requires simple majority. Use our cards. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. And the procedural motion passes. We now have a presentation by the Chair of Capital Planning, Steve Jelinek.
Hi, Steve Jelinek, Chair of Capital Planning. I apologize in advance if I screw up the clicker. I'm going to just talk for a few minutes about the capital items that are in the warrant this year. I like definitions. Everybody that's here probably knows, but I'm just saying it anyway, that a capital item is defined in the charter as any land purchase or a purchase of anything that costs more $10,000 or more with a useful life of 3 years. Capital planning is charged by the charter to present a 5-year capital plan to the town and to make recommendations at the town meeting about capital items. And there's 15 items in the warrant this year. And you'll be hearing from us about specific recommendations about each of us. But first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the work of the Capital Planning Committee. It's I don't know, it's not that arduous a process. We have room for another associate if anybody would like to join us. But I appreciate the work that our committee has done to this point. Okay, this slide summarizes the capital requests that are in the warrant this year, and what it does is compares them to 2 sets of figures. The first is what each department had in their 5-year plan for, at this time last year for FY25, and the second compares what's in the warrant to what was originally requested back in January. And you can see that there's some pretty big differences to what we are seeing now compared to what we had thought we were going to see last year at this time. Definitely departments' plans, they change from year to year, but one big thing that's not in the warrant this year was we expected to see funding for the Lake Boone Dam project. That is not in the warrant this year. So overall, our capital items in the warrant are about $3.6 million less than what was presented at last year's town meeting. And we're about $600,000 less than what was projected back in January. I will have more to say about those differences on the next slide. And also, our recommendations are presented on this slide, and we'll have more to say about each as we move forward. I would like to thank our town administrator for making this slide much more visible than it was when I presented it to her. This slide shows what became of those initial requests that the departments made to us. Our initial requests were about $2.6 million. About $120,000 were paid out of ARPA funds. Hopefully folks remember that ARPA stands for American Rescue Plan Act. It's the money we got from the federal government as a result of the COVID situation. About $500,000 are going to be deferred or for further study or paid using grants. The biggest ticket of this is the $450,000 that the planning department wants to spend on a town center traffic study. And that leaves $2.01 million in requests that appear in this year's warrant, spread between free cash and borrowing. And this is our projection of the town's 5-year capital outlay program. So the $2.1 million shown for FY25 includes the $120,000 that we spent using ARPA funds, and the next 4 columns represent what the departments have told us that they expect to request in each of the next 4 years. Now, some of these numbers will probably change, but you town meeting veterans will no doubt note that these future expenditures are continuing to be higher than what we've typically seen in the past 10 years. Clearly, some of this is because stuff just happens to cost more, and some of it has to do with some big ticket items that are on the horizon that I'm going to talk about in the next slide. But the takeaway here is that the town anticipates capital requests totaling nearly $11 million coming up for approval over the next 5 years, and if you're good at math, that's something on approaching $2 million a year. And these are some of those big ticket items that I talked about a second ago. The 2 biggest ones are repairing Lake Boone Dam and the bridge over the Assabet River at Sudbury Road. The town center traffic study of the planning department that I mentioned a couple of slides ago. The fire department has another vehicle on its radar screen they'd like to replace. The school district has a couple of big projects in the pipeline, replacing the boilers at Hale School and working on some flooring there as well. And the building department is looking at actually adding an emergency generator to power the town building. And lastly, this is a 10-year snapshot of approvals and requests that directly affect the tax levy. This is stuff that is not borrowed, stuff that comes right out of the levy. Past, present, and future, all on one slide. The red bar in the middle is what we've requested for this, or is in this year's warrant, plus the 4 ARPA items that I talked about. Notice that this does not include the borrowing that's going to be coming before you with respect to the Fire Engine 15. The green bars of what we spent over the last 5 years. I guess we thought that that $1.7 million that we approved in FY20 was a one-time thing. Looking ahead, probably not. Over the last 5 years, we've spent an average of $1.026 million, and this year we're looking at $1.02 million, roughly the same number. Over the next 4 years, annual average is $1.2 million, which does not include the Lake Boone Dam or the Sudbury Road Bridge, which we anticipate to be paid for out of borrowing. So, capital expenditures over the next 2 years are expected to be the same or slightly higher than what we spent recently. How'd I do?
Every word a drop of golden knowledge. Thank you, Mr. Jelinek. And with that, I am ready for a motion on Article 36-1, Replacement Vehicle for Inspection Services and Related Equipment.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $60,000 for Article 36-1 as printed in the warrant for the replacement vehicle for inspection services and related equipment.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded under Article 36-1. Your Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant. Mr. Jelinek with Capital Planning's recommendation.
Mr. Moderator, Capital Planning Committee voted to recommend the town approve the funds requested in this article to replace the building inspector's vehicle. The Ford Escape that the inspector previously used was purchased in 2011 and was recently declared to be unsafe to drive. The building commissioner intends to use these funds to purchase a battery electric vehicle, and Capital Planning recommends the town support this request.
Thank you, Mr. Jelinek. Is there any debate on Article 36-1? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. I mentioned the 1974 annual town meeting. We will pretend it is 1974 and we will use the cards. This requires a simple majority. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. Those opposed? Thank you. It passes. I am ready for a motion on Article 36-2, finish painting the exterior of 380 Great Road and all costs incidental and related thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $30,000 for Article 36-2 as printed in the warrant to finish painting the exterior of 380 Great Road and all costs incidental and related thereto.
Do I have a second? Motion's been made and seconded under Article 36-2. Again, your Finance Committee recommendation in the warrant. And Mr. Arsenault with the capital planning recommendation.
Yes, capital plan approves this. It's a little bit higher than round one, but on round two, there was a little bit of rotted wood and stuff that would be in, we were told that this would be it. So we definitely favor this and get the job done. It's town building. Town hall's across.
380 Great Road is town building. Point of clarification. Do we have any debate on Article 36-2? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. Again, the question is on 36-2, cards. All those in favor, please signify by holding up your cards. Thank you. And those opposed. Motion under Article 36-2 passes. Article 36-3, add escape and rescue window to the bunk room at the fire station and all costs incidental and related thereto. Ms. Birch McMichael.
Mr. Moderator, I move no action on Article 36-3.
And Ms. Demkowski, do you want to explain why no action?
Yes. While safety is paramount for our employees, we also believe that equity in employees is equally paramount. And with the increase in hiring of women firefighters, we are looking at reorganizing the fire department, and the current bunk room may turn into a women's locker room. So we don't want to put a window in if that will no longer be a bunk room. So expect next year we'll be coming back for some funds to reorganize the fire department to make room for our women firefighters.
Well said.
Thank you. Do the Finance Committee or Capital Planning Committees have anything to say on no action? All right, very good. Thank you. Let's go to a vote. No action requires a simple majority. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. Those opposed? Thank you. No action on Article 36-3 passes. Article 36-4, refurbished engine 12 and all cost incidental and related thereto. Mr. Toole, do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $50,000 for Article 36-4 as printed in the warrant to refurbish engine 12 and all costs incidental and related to the related equipment.
I have a motion made and seconded on Article 36-4, Finance Committee recommendation in the warrant. Mr. Jelinek with the capital planning recommendation.
Mr. Moderator, capital planning voted unanimously to recommend the towns approve the Fire and Rescue Department's request for these funds. Engine 12 is one of the Fire and Rescue Department's frontline firefighting vehicles, able to carry 1,000 gallons of water and capable of pumping up to 1,500 gallons of water per minute. The vehicle is nearly 20 years old, and if approved, these funds will cover needed structural and equipment repairs that are expected to add up to 10 years to the service life of the vehicle. Capital Planning views this as a prudent expenditure and recommends the town approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Jelinek. Is there any debate on 36-4? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. Simple majority. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. Article 36-4 passes. Article 36-5, replacement of mechanic's service truck S15 and all cost incidental and related thereto. Mr. Constanzos.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $110,000 for Article 36-5 as printed in the warrant for the replacement of mechanic's service truck and all costs incidental and related to, including related equipment.
I have a motion made and seconded on Article 36-5, Finance Committee recommendation in your warrant, and Mr. Arsenault with Capital Planning's recommendation.
Capital Plan approves this mechanic service truck. Right at the present time, he's got the, it's a piece of junk, basically. And this, this truck is significantly lower than he originally came in. And with some discussion and stuff, now this truck, the service truck, is going to have a lift, so, and go out to a breakdown or whatever, and he can lift, you know, whatever it's lawnmower equipment and stuff without breaking his back, because it would cost a lot more if he goes on disability. So anyway, this is, plus he'll have room for tools, he'll have room for other stuff. This is a no-brainer. Capital Plan approves this.
Okay, thank you. Is there any debate on the no-brainer? Apparently not. Okay. This requires simple majority. Use our cards. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed. Motion on Article 36-5 passes. Article 36-6, replacement of Volvo loader L70C and all cost incidental and related thereto. Do I have a motion, Ms. Freysha?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $241,000 for Article 36-6 as printed in the warrant for the replacement of Volvo loader L70C and all costs incidental and related to, including related equipment.
Motion made and second on Article 36-6. Finance Committee recommendation in the warrant. Mr. Arsenault with the Capital Planning recommendation.
Capital Plan approves this purchase. The Volvo loader that they have now serviced us well, but it's stuck in second gear and it's 25 years old. So this is a good, solid piece of equipment that'll last a long time. But we got to get out of second gear, you know. Capital Plan approves this.
Thank you. Is there any debate on 36-6? Seeing none? Oh, yeah, there is. Front microphone.
Mark Forbes, 1 White Pond Road. Are we going to be getting rid of the other vehicle? Or are we going to, I've seen what we do in the past, we buy a new vehicle and we seem to keep the old vehicle as well, or is this going to be getting rid of it?
Ms. Demkowski?
Our intention is to get rid of the old vehicle.
Any further debate? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 36-6, please raise your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. 36-6 passes. Article 36-7, Apple Blossom Lane, resurfacing, first half, crack seals, second half, and all costs incidental and related thereto. We have a motion, Ms. Birch McMichael.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $50,000 for Article 36-7 as printed in the warrant for Apple Blossom Lane resurfacing first half, crack seal second half, and all costs incidental and related to.
Motion made and seconded on Article 36-7, Finance Committee recommendation in the warrant, and Ms. Reed with the Capital Planning recommendation.
Mr. Moderator, Apple Blossom, the Capital Planning Committee recommends approval of Article 36-7. Apple Blossom Lane was constructed in 2 different stages. The Highway Department is looking to fully resurface the first half of the lane and to crack seal the second half of the lane. Capital Planning Committee unanimously approved this.
Thank you. Is there any debate on Article 36-7? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. Simple majority required. Use our cards. All those in favor of Article 36-7, please raise your cards. Thank you. And those against? Thank you. Article 36-7 passes. Article 36-8, Center School Booster Pump Upgrades and all costs incidental and related thereto. Do I have a motion, Mr. Toole?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $55,000 for Article 36-8 as printed in the warrant for Center School booster pump upgrades and all costs incidental and related to.
Motion made and seconded on Article 36-8. Finance Committee recommendation in the warrant, and Mr. DeLuca with the capital planning recommendation.
Capital Planning unanimously voted to support this article. The booster pump is at the end of its life expectancy. It is used for drinking water and has needed service several times recently. The new system is going to be more efficient and will add communications for off-hour reporting of problems. The pump was installed when the building was upgraded in 2012.
Thank you. Is there any debate on Article 36-8? Seeing none, simple majority required for passage. Please use our cards. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you, and those opposed. And that passes. Article 36-9, Hale Middle School Stage Wheelchair Lift Replacement and all costs incidental and related thereto. Do I have a motion, Mr. Constanzos?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $32,015 for Article 36-9 as printed in the warrant for Hale School Stage Wheelchair Lift Replacement and all costs incidental and related to.
Motion's been made and seconded on Article 36-9. Finance Committee recommendation in the warrant, and Mr. DeLuca with Capital Planning's recommendation.
Capital Planning unanimously supported this article. The wheelchair lift has not been operational for years as it's out of compliance with ADA. At present, people who cannot use the stairs to get to the stage need to go outside the building and around to a back door. Retrofitting the existing wheelchair lift is not possible.
Thank you. Is there any debate on the motion under Article 36-9? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 36-9, please raise your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. The motion on Article 36-9 passes. Article 36-10, Hale Interior Doors Replacement Phase 2 and all costs incidental and related thereto. Is there a motion, Ms. Frecia?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $100,000 for Article 36-10 as printed in the warrant for Hale Interior Doors Replacement Phase 2 and all other costs incidental and related thereto.
I have a motion made and seconded on Article 36-10, Finance Committee recommendation in the warrant, and Mr. DeLuca with the Capital Planning recommendation.
Capital Planning unanimously supports this article. This is the Phase 2 of the door replacement. It's actually the third year of funding for door replacement at Hale. Last year's funding has not yet been spent, but the intent is to get bids out quickly. And $50K was approved in 2021 and $100K in the fall of 2023. The current request is for the non-classroom doors. The classroom doors were funded under last year's article.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Is there any debate on Article 36-10? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote, and this requires a simple majority. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you. Those opposed, Article 36-10 passes. Article 36-11, Center School Existing Conditions Assessment and all costs incidental and related thereto. Is there a motion, Ms. Birch McMichael?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $75,000 for Article 36-11 as printed in the warrant for Center School Existing Conditions Assessment and all costs incidental and related to.
I have a motion made and seconded on Article 36-11. The Finance Committee recommendation is in your warrant. Does the Finance Committee have anything they want to add? I don't see anything. Does Mr. DeLuca has capital planning's recommendation?
Capital Planning unanimously opposes the passage of this article. The intent is to pay for services to understand the structures in this school. This is Center School for this article and Hale School for the next one. We appreciate that there is a need for that information, but we do not have a good understanding of the just cost basis justification for the 75K. What are we actually getting for this? How is that going to offset the expenditures? What is the intent there? So we really need more information to understand the justification for this.
Thank you. I think I'm going to begin debate with, by asking the schools if they want to say anything in addition, briefly.
Good morning again, everyone. Ross Mulcurran, Director of Finance and Operations for the school district. I'm going to have our Director of Facilities, Mr. Frieswijk, begin with a couple of points, and then I'll wrap up.
Good morning, Rob Frieswijk, Facilities Director for Neshoba Regional. The existing conditions assessments are vital for optimizing the lifespan of the school building. The existing conditions assessments will give a deep dive into the conditions of the building envelope, structural systems, HVAC, mechanical, plumbing, and electrical systems, and also interior finishes. The existing conditions assessment will also show the impact of years of deferred maintenance due to budgetary restrictions. Existing conditions assessments will help support the 2050 zero greenhouse emission gas policy that the state is enacting. Facilities assessments will help build a detailed roadmap to support funding for short and long-term capital requests, as well as support the district's strategic plan. Thank
you. I would just add that this is a plan for you and your tax dollars as much as it's a plan for the school district. We are currently in a system of submitting a 5-year capital plan every year to the town, and we want to make sure that that is proactive and forward-thinking as much as possible, instead of our current position, which is doing our very best to understand systems, but quite honestly, we're often faced with dealing with the problem that's in front of us, which is typically a failing system of sort or something near the end of its life. We had the pleasure of meeting with Mr. Arnie Epstein. I don't know if Mr. Epstein's here today with regards to
30 seconds.
Green Communities climate leader that Stow is becoming. We believe that could help with this. And to use the statement used earlier about another capital item, we don't want to wait till we're stuck in second gear on some of these things. We want to be able to be proactive and put them forward to the town in a responsible manner. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start debate over here.
Mr. Moderator, Ross Perry, 4 Circuit Drive. I'd like to amend the motion. I have a motion to amend the amount to $25,000 versus $75,000.
I did not hear that. What did you say?
I'd like to amend the amount to $25,000 instead of $75,000.
All right. I don't think I need that in writing. It's fairly understandable. There is a motion. Is there a second on the motion to amend? A motion has been made to amend the amount to $25,000. We are now debating the amendment. Mr. Perry?
I commend the schools for planning ahead. I think we've always felt that they come up with capital plan requests at the spur of the moment, but I suggest that they could do this assessment with existing staff versus $75,000.
Thank you. The lady in line at the same microphone? No, she's deferring. Over here?
My comment is on the amendment.
Yes.
So reducing the amount in...
Please identify yourself.
Oh, sorry, Leah Viverito, Kirkland Drive. Reducing the amount is not necessarily the solution, considering it would only allow us to do one phase of the inspection. And so I would ask that the amendment not be passed and that we consider voting for the total amount this year.
Thank you. Side microphone.
Steve Jelinek, 88 PBD Drive. Just to kind of highlight capital planning's debate about this. We, again, commend the school for planning ahead. Ross's point is a good one. We have often been faced with the school coming to us with, situations that require immediate attention. We don't disagree that planning needs to be done. We asked the school to be able to show us that the money that would be spent, whether it would be $25,000 or $75,000, would be valuable to the town. Like, what would be our return? How much money would we save in the long run by spending the money now? We were not able to get any definitive information from the school about this. And so, like Ed pointed out, we're looking for some justification for how much money we could save by spending the money on this survey now, and we were not able to get it, so we don't approve either spending 25 or 75.
Thank you. Any further debate? Yes, side microphone.
Alice DeLuca, 26 Crescent Street. So,
I think a little bit closer to the mic, Alice.
I'm also very interested in seeing the school district maintain the buildings and have the information that's required. But when we went out looking for bids to do this at Minuteman, we were given examples of reports that have been given to other school districts on their buildings. That kind of information made it possible for us to hire somebody without any questions. Just all they need to do is provide an example to the town of the quality of information they're going to get for the $75,000, I think.
Thank you. Is there any further debate on the amendment? Yes, front microphone.
Yes, Mark Forge, One Way Pond Road. I was a facility manager for many years. I don't understand why the school doesn't have someone on staff that's actually going to do preventative maintenance and give opinions of what's going on the equipment in the building, rather than just say, okay, every few years I have to spend $75,000. Looking at $150,000 for the two schools right now, I think it's ridiculous. I think they should be looking into maybe hiring someone who's doing preventive maintenance of the building and giving opinions of the length of the equipment rather than doing something like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Very brief, Mr. Frieswick, and then you have the last word.
To your point, I appreciate your point. That is my job to, maintain the buildings and to do, preventative maintenance. We do that on a regular basis. These existing conditions assessment is going to be a very detailed, lengthy process. It's going to be a detailed and lengthy process that's going to give us, again, very detailed information that's above and beyond, the scope of work that I could do. These would, be coming from engineers, consultants, and things like that. So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to a vote on the proposed amendment reducing the amount from 75 to 25. This is not a vote on Article 36-11. Regardless of which way this vote goes, we will proceed to another vote on the main motion itself. So again, vote on the amendment reducing the amount. Simple majority required. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your cards. And all those against. The amendment fails. Thank you. Going back to the main motion, side microphone. By the way, if you haven't figured out, I call, just to avoid right-left confusion, I call this microphone front and that microphone side. So side microphone.
Ellen Sturgis, 12 Canterbury Road. So I was co-chair of the building committee here. That was only 12 years ago, I believe, that we opened. So the idea of deferred maintenance, it seems unlikely. So I'm generally against it, particularly for this building. I also think that if we're going to spend this kind of money now at this point, $150,000 for these two, let's just hire someone.
Thank you. Front microphone.
John Colonna Romano, Boxborough Road. Also, I'm on the Green Advisory Committee, and I'm not sure if this article will actually do the task that I'm interested in, but I think it's very important that the schools have a plan so that when the furnace goes, right, the easiest thing isn't to just replace it with another fuel oil or gas-fired furnace, but that they have a plan in place so that they can move with a more environmental friendly and emissions friendly solution. And that's not going to happen on a spare moment when it's in the middle of the winter and they don't have a furnace running. So I'm interested in that they do have a plan. And I don't know if this article would do that, so how they would replace those furnaces if they went in an emergency.
That sounded like a question, but the town administrator is indicating she can answer that.
I can answer, just because, hello? I can answer that because I've spoken with Rob and Ross, and we are planning for that in the future. That's one of the reasons why we have added the schools under the Green Communities designation for the Climate Leader Program, so that hopefully when the time comes, there'll be grant funding available to move to a more sustainable option.
Side microphone.
Missy Reed, Apple Blossom Lane. I'm familiar with what these consultants do on these facility assessments. Basically, it's a detailed review of systems electrical systems, mechanical systems, boilers, specific equipment pieces. It's based on when the equipment was installed, the age of the equipment, the maintenance that's been done over the years, and it's basically an accumulation of the cost to replace those based on what current value of those replacement pieces are. I agree to some extent on this. However, I do not believe that. I think this is something that we should reconsider what can be done in-house. And in response to the question about the new requirements for green buildings and the energy codes that have been placed, they're in place now for the state, I think the money for both of these schools can be better spent. I think we need to reconsider the funding for each of these schools and the $150,000 to evaluate these code requirements, and instead use this money, put it into the capital fund to be applied more for consideration of enhancement for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no further debate on Article 3611, we will go to a vote. This requires a simple majority. We'll use our cards. All those in favor of the main motion on Article 36-11, please raise your cards. And those against. The motion fails. Article 36-12, Hale Middle School Existing Conditions Assessment and all costs incidental and related thereto. Do I have a motion, Mr. Toole?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $73,000 for Article 36-12 as printed in the warrant for Hale Middle School Existing Conditions Assessment and all costs incidental and related to.
Motion's been made and seconded under Article 36-12. Your Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant, and there's nothing additional. And Capital Planning recommendation from Mr. DeLuca.
Capital Planning unanimously opposed the recommendation of this article for the reasons related to the previous discussion. The slightly lower fee is related to the different square footage of Hale compared with Center School.
Thank you. Is there any debate? Front microphone.
Hi, Leah Viverito, Kirkland Drive. Considering the age of this building, I would recommend that the body vote for this. There was an incident a couple of years ago where the water supply was determined to be insufficient, and they had to bring food in for the kids every single day. They couldn't wash their hands, they couldn't use the bubblers because we didn't have advance notice that a system was failing and that that PFAS was infiltrating. And so I think that if the body were to vote no now, this is something that we definitely need to do in the near future. It's not something that facilities can do considering all of the expertise that is needed for very complex and elderly buildings. So I would recommend that we do invest in this, if not now, at some point, because we need to make sure that our buildings are appropriate for the kids to go to every day.
Thank you. Any further debate? Seeing none, we are ready for a vote. As on the main motion on Article 36-12, simple majority required. Using our cards, all those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you, and those opposed. and the motion fails. Thank you. Article 36-13, body-worn cameras and all costs incidental and related thereto. Have a motion, Mr. Constanzos?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town take no action on Article 36-13.
I have a motion made and seconded under Article 36-13. I'm afraid I didn't, was it for no action? Okay, I heard something else. Ms. Demkowski, would you like to explain no action?
Yes. The use of body-worn cameras is a subject of collective bargaining agreements with the union, and unfortunately, we were unable to come to suitable financial terms for the union to wear the cameras. So at this point, we are taking no action and asking not to support this.
Do Finance Committee or Capital Planning have anything to say about no action? Seeing nothing, we'll go to a vote. No action requires a simple majority. All those in favor of no action, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Article 36-14, police cruiser and related equipment. A motion, Ms. Frecia.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from certified free cash the sum of $81,000 for Article 36-14 as printed in the warrant for a police cruiser and related equipment.
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded on Article 36-14, Finance Committee recommendation in the warrant, and Capital Planning recommendation from Mr. Jelinek.
Mr. Moderator, Capital Planning recommends the town approve the funds requested by the Police Department to purchase a new vehicle. The department intends to use these funds to add another battery electric vehicle to its fleet, and Capital Planning voted unanimously to advise the town to support this request.
Thank you. Is there any debate on 36-14? Seeing none, we'll... By the way, that picture of the pickup truck, somebody is a very good photographer. They had to pan to get it that focus. When it comes up, it's very good. We'll go straight to a vote on Article 36-14. Simple majority required. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Mr. Arsenault, thanks. And all those opposed? It passes. That brings us to Article 37-1, which is the only capital article requiring borrowing. Article 37-1, replacement of 2,000 fire engine and related equipment. Ms. Birch McMichael.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town borrow $990,000 for Article 37-1 as printed in the warrant for the replacement of 2,000 fire engine and related equipment, and that to meet said appropriation, the treasurer, with approval from the select board, is authorized to borrow the full amount of the appropriation under General Laws, Chapter 44, or any other general or special law or other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town.
I have a motion made and seconded under Article 37-1, Finance Committee recommendation in the warrant, Capital Planning recommendation from Mr. Jelinek.
Mr. Moderator, Capital Planning voted unanimously to recommend the town approve Article 37-1. Engine 15 is the fire department's primary vehicle for pumping water when fighting fires. The vehicle has provided nearly a quarter of a century of service to the department, but it has finally reached the end of its useful life. The department has been planning for this replacement for over 5 years. The vehicle the department plans to purchase will have more water pumping capacity and 3 times the water carrying capacity of the current engine, and is expected to be in service for at least 20 years.
Thank you. As I get older, I find myself sympathetic with these pieces of equipment that are nearing the end of their useful life. Any debate on Article 37-1? Front microphone.
Mark Forbes, One White Pond Road. We just approved a refurbishing of another one, and it was told to us that it was the 2,000 so many gallons a minute pumper that they're refurbishing. It was the #1 fire truck. So now we have 2 #1 fire trucks that are doing the same job. I'm just confused about this. And is this going to raise our taxes?
Is the chief here, the fire chief? And Ms. Dimkowski, certainly, please go ahead.
So this will be borrowed within the levy. So it's not being added, it's not going out as a debt exclusion. It will be within the current levy.
Mr. Moderator, John Paul Benoit, 15 O'Connell Way, also the fire chief. To answer your question, we have 3 pumpers in the department, each carry a capacity of 1,000 gallons of water. The one that we just voted on for the refurbishment is a 2006. The expected life of those trucks are 25 years. So this is not on the capital radar until FY31. We have an annual maintenance of all the trucks. We spend roughly $16,000 to $18,000 out of our budget to maintain these trucks. They go to companies to get serviced, inspected, tested, and this year we found that with engine 12, the frame is starting to rust. We have some pump issues, and to prolong the life of that truck, we asked for refurbishment. The one that we're asking for replacement right now is a 2000 International pumper. This is a truck that's used for the water source. It carries over 3,000 feet of hose, and as I mentioned, 1,000 gallons of water. The truck that we're looking to replace is a 3,000 gallon truck. This would work as another part of the operations. This would be our second due truck to be able to get as much water to the scene as possible. As you're all aware, we do not have hydrants in the town of Stow. So the more water that we can get to the scene, the quicker, the more aggressive we can be to save structures and lives. Hopefully I answered the question.
Thank you, Chief. Any further debate? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. This article requires borrowing, and therefore it requires a 2/3 majority. We will use our cards. All those in favor of the motion under Article 37-1, please raise your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Clearly has a 2/3 majority and passes. That brings us to Article 38, Stow Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, Bird Meadow Housing. Do I have a motion, Mr. Toole?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 38, Stow Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, Bird Meadow Housing, as printed in the warrant and as funding thereof, appropriate and transfer the sum of $200,000 from the Community Preservation Fund Reserve for Affordable Housing in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44B, the Community Preservation Act, to be expended under the direction of the Stow Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, SMART, upon the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee for continued development of not more than 6 affordable housing units off Red Acre Road, Bird Meadow, and other costs or fees incidental thereto, and to authorize the Select Board or its designee to apply for and accept such gifts and grants as may be available for reimbursement to the town for these purposes.
Thank you. I have a motion made and seconded under Article 38. Finance Committee recommendation is in your warrant, and I believe we have a brief presentation from Ms. Crawford, the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, and Mr. Kupczynski of SMOT. Is that not correct? Oh, all right. No, I think it's both Ms. Crawford and Mr. Kupczynski.
Hi. No, Mike is doing the presentation.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Mike is doing the presentation. I am not.
Okay. Ms., I think you had something you wanted to say? May I just verify with you that at a public meeting, the Community Preservation Committee voted to recommend passage of Articles 26, Community Preservation Administration Expenses, 27, Community Preservation Reserves, this article, and Article 39, Funds for Restoration of the John Randall Portrait. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. That's what we needed. Thank you. And Mr. Kupczynski?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Hello? Yes. Mike Kuczynski, 12 Canterbury Road, and I'm the chair of the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. SMOT. Thank you. It's branding. Just want to remind Mr. Moderator and town meeting that in 2021, this body approved $1.1 million to subsidize the development of the building of 6 affordable units at then called Red Acre, and now the project's called the Bird Meadow Project after Mrs. Harriet Bird. Since then, both increasing, we had a buffer at that point of about 15% for cost overruns. Since that point, both construction costs have gone up, and more importantly, interest rates have gone up in a kind of unprecedented, or certainly if you're old enough, you remember this is high interest rates, but they've certainly gone up. They've doubled in the last couple of years, combining for a 30% loss of buying power for potential eligible homeowners. That created a budget between $450,000 and $500,000. SMUT has rejiggered the finances such that the cost of the land has been reduced, and more of the trust funds will be made available to take up a part of that, up to $300,000 of that gap. But we have asked for $200,000 additional funds to make up that funding, so that we can address the gap. The next slide just quickly shows. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, the one does not seem to be projecting well, but essentially we went from about a little under 4% in 2022 to a high near 8%, but is now settled around 7% for mortgage rates. And how that, you can see on this graph, you can see how mortgage rates affects buying power and what people can buy. So the gap is created by the costs are going up, but more importantly, the amount of money that an affordable household can pay goes down as the interest rates goes up. So that gap gets wider. So we're trying to have the funds in place so that as we put out a request for proposal, that the budget is going to be sufficient to be able to attract the kind of developers that we're looking for. I think that's all.
Is that it? Thank you, Mr. Kupczynski. Is there any debate on Article 38? Side microphone.
Mr. Moderator,
Oh, I'm so sorry, this is the capital planning recommendation.
We got you, Jim. Mr. Moderator, Capital Planning voted to recommend the town support the use of additional Community Preservation Act funds to close the funding gap that escalating project costs have created for the Bird Meadow project.
Thank you. Your Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant, if I didn't already say that. Now debate, front microphone.
Forge, 1 White Pond Road. My concern is that we voted this money in 2021, now it's 2024. I'd like to know what the progress on this project is. I don't see any development going on or any plans that I've heard of. I'm just curious where we stand with it. Costs are going up all the time for everything, so if we vote another $200,000 this year and it waits another 3-4 years to start again, is it going to come for more money in another 2 or 3 years? Thank you.
Mr. Kupczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The request for proposal process has taken a lot longer than we thought because of the town has never really done this type of transfer of land before to a developer to do this. The only other time we've done this is with Habitat, and that was a much simpler process because they have a whole process that we could tie into. Of our trying to drive this ourselves, we do not have experience, even though we do have a procurement administrator. That person does not have a lot of experience in running this type of procurement, which is kind of a bigger deal than has been done. So we've had to use some outside help, and it's just taken longer than we would have thought. And you're right. I mean, we'd love to move it. We're preparing the RFP now so that we won't have further runs, but like cost overruns.
Thank you. Is there a follow-up?
So what is the, I mean, I understand your dilemma. My question is, where are we going to be when we give you this $200,000? And, you know, what is the projected outcome of this? You know, is it going to be 3 months, 6 months, a year?
Address your
From now?
remarks to me, Mr. Forgas.
Yes, okay. And, you know, my point is that how long is it going to be before it actually happens, giving them the extra money now?
Mr. Kupczynski.
Our hope is to be able to put this RFP out this summer and begin to select and move forward with the project in the fall, with hopefully building next spring.
Thank you. I should note, I'm having a bit of difficulty hearing those in the audience, possibly because the IT director is on the phone behind me. And so just try to speak up a little bit. I probably shouldn't have said that just before Ms. Weathers is about to speak, because I know she can project, but go ahead.
Yes. So Pam Weathers, 89 West Acton Road. I had sort of related questions, just I didn't know what the, when you say the trust, you're talking about the Stow Municipal Affording Housing Trust. And then when sales occur, do the monies come back to the trust or to the CPC, or what?
Mr. Kupczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Roderick. So you look at the total cost of building, and then the costs, we would give a proposal to a developer who would come in. We would not be the developer, so.
Address your remarks to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We would not be the developer. The town would be the developer who we select. There's a total budget for the project. Part of that is the subsidy, well, part of it is how much they can sell those homes for to defer the cost of the building. And what's left is the gap, and that's going to be about 1.3 million, we believe, from the CPC funding and another $300,000. So there's going to be a gap. So the developer gets all that money, and they have a limit on how much, because it's a 40B, there's a limit on how much affordable housing, right? There's a limit on how much, by statute, there's a limit on how much profit they can make. It's a modest profit, I think 15 or 20%. So you look at the total budget, and then there's the money that comes from selling those units, and then the rest is subsidy.
Thank you. Any further debate on Article 38? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. This requires, I'm sorry, we have you just in time,
Mr. Moderator, I just wanted to thank SMOT.
Identify yourself. For
Alice DeLuca, 26 Crescent Street. I want to thank SMOT because they mentioned that this was for in honor of Mrs. Bird, and I had been sitting there thinking it was about birds and Baltimore Orioles and whatever, and now I know it's about Mrs. Bird, whoever she was. Thank you, SMOT.
Thank you, and we have one additional comment at the front microphone.
Charlie Aronson, 38 Arbor Glen Drive. Question, when people purchase these homes, will Stow residents be given preference?
Mr. Kupczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The intention is to have a local initiative program, so there'll be a slight preference, but part of affordable housing is that there needs to be an affirmative marketing plan so that people who are most in need are addressed, but there is a slight advantage in the lottery program through this local initiative program.
Thank you. Seeing no further debate, we will go to a vote on Article 38. Requires a simple majority using our cards. All those in favor of the main motion, please raise your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? And the motion passes. Article 39, funds for the restoration of John Randall portrait. Do I have a motion, Mr. Constanzos?
Mr. Moderator. Hello. Thank you. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 39, funds for the restoration of John Randall portrait, as printed in the warrant, and as funding therefore appropriate and transfer the sum of $4,660 from the Community Preservation Fund Reserve for Historic Preservation in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44B, the Community Preservation Act, to be expended under the direction of the Randall Library Trustees upon the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee for the purpose of restoring an historic portrait of John Randall and its framing.
I have a motion made and seconded under Article 39. Your Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant. I'm wondering if a library trustee wishes to give this any more context. It's not necessary, maybe, but is there anybody who'd like to say anything? Don't see any takers for that. All right. Any debate on Article 39? Seeing none, we will go straight to a vote. All those in favor of the main motion on Article 39, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those against? The motion passes. Article 40, transfer to the group insurance account. Do I have a motion, Ms. Frecia?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 40, transfer to the group insurance account as printed in the warrant and as funding therefore, transfer from certified free cash the sum of $160,045 to the fiscal year 2024 group insurance account.
A motion made and seconded under Article 40. Your Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant. And is there any debate? Seeing none, we will go straight to a vote. All those in favor of the main motion under Article 40, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? And the motion passes. Article 41, Lake Boone Project Manager, Ms. Birch McMichael.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 41, Lake Boone Project Manager, as printed in the warrant and as funding therefore, transfer from certified free cash the sum of $50,000 to be expended under the direction of the town administrator to pay for the services of the Lake Boone Dam Project Manager, including all costs incidental and related thereto.
Motion's been made and seconded under Article 41, Finance Committee recommendation in your warrant. Is there any debate? Seeing none, we will go. Is this debate? Yes. Side microphone.
My name is Dan Barstow. I am a member of the Lake Boone Commission, but this is not a vote of the Lake Boone Commission I'm representing. I support this. We really need a manager for this. It's a major project, and I support this motion.
Thank you. Any further debate?
Pam Weathers, 89 West Acton Road. And
Yes.
so the question is, I don't even know what's going on with the dam. Can somebody update us to let us know? Because this is, been going on for a while, but we don't have much information on it.
Ms. Dimkowski, can you do that?
Yes. So we have been going through engineering work with our engineering firms. A lot of what has been taking the time is with the help of our Lake Boone Dam project manager. We have been working with some abutters, which will come up in an upcoming question, to allow for some use of their property. The project is currently out for environmental permitting with the state, and once we hear back from the permitting, our hope would be that we are able to start construction of the dam next spring.
Side microphone.
Missy Reed, Apple Blossom Lane. I just have a question. So is this position like an owner's, it's like an owner's project manager? So this person is the town representative for the project that will manage the project and the contractors, et cetera, for the town?
Yes, so not necessarily the contractors, our engineering firm will do that, but this is the point person who is handling all the day-to-day oversight of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Any further debate? And seeing none, we'll go to a vote on Article 41. Requires a simple majority. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. Those opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Article 42, Comprehensive Plan, Technical Assistance. Do I have a motion, Mr. Toole?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 42, Comprehensive Plan Technical Assistance, as printed in the warrant and as funding therefore, transfer from certified free cash the sum of $100,000 to be expended by the Planning Board for comprehensive planning technical assistance.
A motion made and seconded under Article 42. Your Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant. I think we have a brief presentation from our Planning Director, Ms. Ortez.
Thank you. I am Valerie Ortiz. I'm your planning director. I'm here to talk about comprehensive plan technical assistance. Next slide. Oh, I have it. Thank you. So a comprehensive plan or a master plan is a town-wide policy document that provides a basis for decision-making regarding the long-term physical development of the town. So this is a plan that does not live on a shelf. It is very much front and center in our daily work. We refer to it throughout the year regularly to make sure that opportunities that come up and how we are prioritizing projects are consistent with the comprehensive plan. So you may remember that I was here exactly a year ago asking for the same thing. Unfortunately, we were not successful in a grant application request. So what we're here today asking for is the second half of those funds. So right now we are in phase 2 of 4 phases to complete the comprehensive plan update. So I'll just briefly review a few of our accomplishments that we've been able to handle in the last year. We have created a comprehensive plan committee. We've contracted with consultants at J.M. Goldson. We've also held a kickoff presentation last October and an open house in January. We've completed a public engagement and outreach plan, which sets an ambitious outreach goal and maps out our networks and stakeholders so that we're making sure that the plan is really representative of the community. We've also finalized an existing conditions inventory, which is a key component of the comprehensive plan update. We're also currently in the midst of our main push for community engagement. So if we have not heard from you yet, you have about another week to use any of our engagement tools to lend your voice to this comprehensive plan update. So again, we're looking for funds for the second half of this plan. So what this money really does here is allows us to continue working with the consultants at J.M. Goldson. And what the consultant provides is really that driving force behind the plan to really push us to a structured timeline and make sure that we are getting, again, the product that we're looking for. So they are experts at comprehensive planning, and they're able to help our committee balance the different feedback that we're receiving from residents, business owners, staff, to make sure that this is the best plan for Stow. So the next steps for the committee are to synthesize the community engagement that we've received so far, to develop vision and goals for the town, to create strategies to meet that vision and goals, and then create an implementation plan. So to conclude, this project provides a shared vision for the future of Stow, an understanding of what you all want to protect and preserve or change about the town, improved eligibility for state grants, consistency in decision-making, and a roadmap for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Is there any debate on Article 42? Front microphone.
Mark Forbes, One White Pond Road. My only concern is that we gave money last year, and we're going to get another $100,000 this year. And I look at your plan, it looks like it has 4 sections. Does that mean 2 more years we're going to be doing another $100,000 for this comprehensive plan?
Ms. Ortiz.
So what we have now that we did not have last year is a budget for the project. So the budget is going to be billed at a flat fee of just under $200,000. So it's confirmed that our consultants are able to provide us with a complete plan for this amount of funding.
Side microphone.
Charlie Hartford, 95 Taylor Road. I'm chair of the Comprehensive Planning Commission. I just wanted to underscore one thing Valerie said, which is that the consultant has been very helpful in providing us with structure and guidance as well as a fresh set of eyes on the challenges facing the town. And that really enables the committee to focus in on the sorts of things we can do to help support this project. Having this sort of outside feedback has been very important so far. I think it will continue to be. And the other thing I just want to mention is we've had, as Valerie mentioned, really good support so far. More than 10% of the town has participated in our outreach. And if you haven't yet, there's information on the table over there, and the tools to use, such as the survey, are going to be up. I believe it's until May 20th. So feel free to ask me questions afterwards, but if you haven't already participated, please do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Seeing none, we are ready for a vote. This requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the main motion under Article 42, please raise your cards. Thank you. And those opposed. And the motion passes. Article 43, Complete Streets Construction Administration. Do I have a motion, Mr. Constanzos?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 43, Complete Streets Construction Administration, as printed in the warrant, and as funding therefore, raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to pay for the costs of construction, administration, and any other incidental costs related thereto for planned sidewalk construction along a portion of Crescent Street funded for construction through the Mass DOT Complete Streets Program.
Motion's been made and seconded under Article 43. Your Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant. Do I have any debate? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. This requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the main motion, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed. And the motion passes. Thank you. Article 44, Personal Property Exemption. Ms. Frecia?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 44, Personal Property Exemption, as printed in the warrant, to increase the minimum value of personal property subject to taxation under Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 54, to $7,500.
Thank you. I have a motion made and seconded under Article 44. Again, Finance Committee recommendation in the warrant. And we have a presentation from Mr. Golder, who is on the Board of Assessors. Mr. Golder?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Lenny Golder, 67 Old Bolton Road, member of the Board of Assessors, known as the bad guys in town government, I guess. Or there's another word that sounds like assessors that sometimes is used. But I can't mention that because this is a G-rated meeting. Anyway, that was supposed to be a joke, and I told Yoda, no, it's not going to work. Okay. Anyway, some good news here on these two articles I'm presenting. It's actually going to involve some tax benefits. What we're proposing is for small businesses that pay a personal property tax. Currently, they have an exemption of the first $2,500, and we're proposing raising it to $7,500. And if you look at the bottom part of that sheet, you'll see that we have the lowest personal property exemption of any of the surrounding towns. And we're proposing raising it to 75. Oh, okay.
No comments from the floor, please. No comments from the floor, please.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Golder.
Thank you. So we're proposing raising this from $2,500 to $7,500, which would put us near the top. Not exactly at the top, but near the top, to provide more tax relief for small businesses. If you look at the third line down where it says number of accounts, currently there's 163 small businesses that are paying for a personal property tax. And if we move this to 75, if you look at the third column, that will provide an exemption for an additional 88 small businesses. So that will, bring some reliefs to some additional small businesses. In fiscal year 2023, for example, 10% of our businesses in Stow closed. And we don't want to see that recur. We want to do whatever we can to keep small businesses in town, maybe even incentivize additional businesses to move into town. Now, the other thing, the good news is, if you'll notice on the tax rate, making this change will not change the tax rate, not even by a penny. So it's really a win-win. It's not going to hurt the rest of us taxpayers, but it will help small businesses. So we would ask for your support on this article.
Thank you, Mr. Golder. Any debate on Article 44? Front microphone.
Mark Forbes, One White Pond Road. How many businesses closed because of this property tax exemption?
How many did close?
Because of this?
Yeah. I don't have an exact number, but it says approximately 10% of the businesses.
Closed because of this? Not
because of this
other
personal
issues,
exemption?
not
Specifically because of this exemption?
Correct.
That I can't answer, but I can tell you that there's certainly...
Probably none.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think, when you have a small business and you have to pay, some additional personal property tax, that adds a burden. It may not be the sole reason for a business closing, but it certainly doesn't help any. And,
Okay.
I think you had your one follow-up, Mr. Forgas.
Okay, it's part of the tax process.
Mr. Forgas, I think you had your one follow-up. Thanks. Side microphone.
Can you comment on why you chose 75K as opposed to 10K, since the columns, again, if we're looking at the tax rate, there's no difference there either?
Well, actually, there's a good significant difference from 2,500 to 7,500 because that's 88 businesses. But to answer your question, why not go to 10,000? We had a discussion, with the board, and this was a number that we could arrive at by agreement, by consensus. It was a consensus agreement. But if people feel, if the town meeting feels that they would like to raise it to the 10,000, I mean, you're certainly welcome to offer an amendment to increase it to 10,000. I'm on a board, 3 members. We try to arrive at a consensus, that 3 members will agree on. But like I say, if the town feels that they'd like to increase it, you can certainly do so by an amendment.
Any further debate? Side microphone.
Ames Coney, Sudbury Road. Do the small businesses have to file Mr. Moderator, does the small business have to file an exemption form? I mean, the whole burden is the paperwork as much as it is the money. And I'm curious whether this is really going to relieve them any paper.
Can I answer that, Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Golder, or if the town administrator feels it should rather handle either one.
Okay.
Mr. Golder, I think.
Do you want? Okay. This is actually going to save 3 different departments' paperwork because they're not going to have to process taxes that would be under $7,500. So it's going to save a lot of hours for the in-house assessors, the tax collector, and the tax accountant. The other part of it is sometimes, a lot of these small accounts are uncollectible anyway. Businesses dissolve, they move out of town, you can't locate them. The cost of trying to locate and try to get payment on a small amount of money, like $2,500, is not cost effective. So from an administrative standpoint, it's actually more efficient to have this higher exemption.
Thank you, Mr. Golder. Side microphone.
Pam Weathers, 89 West Acton Road. I just want to make sure I'm understanding your table correctly, where it says tax dollars. And so as you read across, going from 250 to 10, that is what the amount would be of taxes that are collected if it's at 10 or 750 or 5,000. Is that correct?
Are you referring to the top line where it says 22 million?
Where it says tax dollars.
She's talking about the
Just
top
wanna-
table,
Oh, I
the
see,
third
yeah,
line down.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's the amount of total tax revenue, and that's the difference, with the exemption.
Got it, thank you.
Let's see if the town administrator wants to add anything on that.
So I did just want to clarify that, yes, that is the difference in revenue. And to the previous question, every year, all businesses have to file what they have for equipment. That will not change, but anyone who's under the 7,500 would not have to file for an exemption. They just would not get billed. So it actually will save them from having to do anything further on the business end.
Thank you. Any further debate?
Yeah, Dave Arsenal, 12 Hastings. If you drive by the Lower Village, you see a lot of vacancies and stuff. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make an amendment. Why don't we just do the 10,000? It's a difference of a couple of bucks, So I'd like to make amendment from 7,500 to 10,000.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded to amend the main motion under Article 44, substituting $10,000 for 7,500. It is the amendment that we are debating right now. Is there any debate on the amendment? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go to a vote. This requires a simple majority. We use our cards. This is a vote on the amendment again, not on the main Article 44. All those in favor of the amendment from 75 to 10,000, raise your cards. And those against. Thank you. The amendment passes. The motion now reads 10,000 instead of 7,500. Back to debate on the main motion. Any further debate? Seeing none, we're ready for a vote. Again, simple majority. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those against. Thank you. The main motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Golder.
Yeah, I have one more article coming up right after it on the National Guard.
I'm not aware that you have any presentation.
Briefly.
Why don't we just see if there's any questions?
Okay, so shall I step down?
You can go to the well. I think you can speak from the well. Article 45, National Guard Reserve Tax Relief.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 45, National Guard Reserve Tax Relief, as printed in the warrant, to accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 56, whereby the Board of Assessors may grant real and personal property tax abatements up to 100% of the total tax assessed to members of the Massachusetts National Guard and to reservists on active duty in foreign countries for the fiscal year they performed such service, subject to eligibility criteria to be established by the Board of Assessors, such authorization to be effective for fiscal year 2025 and fiscal year 2026.
I have a motion made and seconded under Article 45. Your Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant. Before we begin debate, actually, Ms. Demkowski, do you want to give a short explanation of this? My notes indicate that you might want to do that.
So I can. This is a statutory authorization that we are required to accept every 2 years. So this previously came before this body, and then we will just reauthorize the exemption for those that are on active duty.
Mr. Golder, I assume you're there to answer any questions. Is there any debate? Seeing none, we'll go straight to a vote. All those in favor of the main motion under Article 45, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you. Article 46, authorize lease agreements for Lake Boone Dam project. Do you have a motion, Mr. Toole?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 46, authorize lease agreements for Lake Boone Dam project, as printed in the warrant, to lease a portion or portions of 105 Barton Road, Assessor's Parcel U2-62, and 121 through 123 Barton Road, Assessor's Parcels U2-4A and U2-60 Stow, for parking and construction related activities for the Lake Boone Dam project, for such period of time and upon such terms and conditions as the Select Board shall determine to be appropriate. The rental of said leases to be funded from prior appropriation for the Lake Boone Dam project, and further to authorize the Select Board to execute any and all instruments to carry out the intent of this article.
I have a motion made and seconded under Article 46. Your Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant. Ms. Demkoski, a little context on this would be helpful.
Certainly. So anyone who knows the Lake Boone Dam area knows there is zero room for any storage, any place for parking, etc. Our project manager, since he came on board with us last May by using ARPA funds for this first year, has been working tirelessly with the abutters to find some space that we can allow for some construction vehicle parking, those that will be working on the project, some sites for storage, etc. So at this point, we have two homeowners. The 105 Barton Road and the other home is 121, 123. It is the same owner that have been gracious enough to offer a portion of their property for different terms that will be negotiated with the Select Board. This body has to authorize the board to enter into those agreements.
Thank you. Is there any debate on Article 46? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. The question is the main motion, Article 46, simple majority. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. Opposed? And the motion passes. Article 47, acceptance of Joanne Drive as a town way. Mr. Constanzos.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 47, acceptance of Joanne Drive as a town way as printed in the warrant, to accept as a public way the roadway known as Joanne Drive, as heretofore laid out by the Select Board and shown on a plan of land entitled Definitive Subdivision Plan, Joanne Drive, a planned conservation development, Stow, Massachusetts, dated August 4th, 2017, prepared by Staminsky and McNary Incorporated and recorded with the Middlesex South District Registry of Deeds as Plan 195 of 2020, said plan on file with the town clerk, and authorize the Select Board to acquire by gift, purchase, and/or eminent domain the fee to and/or easements in Joanne Drive for all purposes for which public ways are used in the town of Stow, and any drainage, access, utility, and other easements and/or other easements related thereto.
Thank you. A motion's been made and seconded on Article 47. The Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant. Is there any debate? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. This requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the main motion, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. And the motion passes. I am going to declare a very brief 10-minute recess before Article 48. I've received two seemingly complicated amendments proposed for Article 49. I want an opportunity to review them with council. Don't worry, we are still on a pace to beat 1974. So see you back in about 10 minutes. All right, everyone, I think we're ready to get started. If you could take your seats. Thank you. No, I made the mistake of eating something that stuck in my throat. Thank you. Thank you. Article 48, amend zoning bylaw, section 3.2.2, residential district uses permitted subject to special permit granted by the Board of Appeals. Is there a motion, Ms. Freisha?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 48, amend zoning bylaw, Section 3.2.2, residential district uses permitted subject to special permit granted by the Board of Appeals, as printed in the warrant.
I have a motion made and seconded on Article 48. Finance Committee recommendation is in your warrant. I believe we have a brief presentation from Mr. Slagle. But before we get to that, is the chair of the planning board in the room? Lori? Ms. Clark, can I verify with you that at a public meeting, the planning board conducted public hearings on Articles 48 and 49 and voted to recommend them to town meeting? Thank you. Mr. Slagle, we're ready. Thank you.
Hi, Michael Slagle, Land Use Planner and GIS Administrator, and I'm here to present Article 48, which is about clarifying the zoning bylaw for commercial stables. So in the zoning bylaw, there are several sections, and the one that we are amending now is Section 3.2, which is the residential district. The purpose of the residential district, as the name kind of indicates, is for housing. Within that section, there are uses that are allowed by right, so things that you can do with just a building permit, and then there are things that are issued through a special permit. Special permits are either issued by the Planning Board or the Board of Appeals, which you might know as the Zoning Board of Appeals. One of the special permits that the Board of Appeals currently has, or is able to issue, is for stables. In the current section up on the screen, you can see that it talks about special permits for stables on parcels that are less than 5 acres. So if someone wants a new stable on their property right now, they would have to go to the Board of Appeals for approval, as well as the Board of Health. So we are clarifying the zoning bylaw to say that for parcels that are less than 5 acres, they would need to go only to, for parcels less than 5 acres, commercial stables would need a special permit from the Board of Appeals. For stables that are not commercial, they would only need to go to the Board of Health. This realigns the processes with the town, making it a simpler process, but it doesn't really remove any of the barriers or the conditions that you would need in order to get a stable. For parcels that are larger than 5 acres, that falls under agricultural exemptions, so a special permit is not needed. Just to wrap this up, this really is a slight change, and it's really just to align with the Board of Health regulations on the keeping of horses.
Thank you, Mr. Slagle. Is there any debate? Seeing none, we're ready for a vote on the main motion under Article 48. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you, and those opposed. Thank you. Article 48 passes. Oh, I'm so sorry. That one required 2/3, and clearly it passed by 2/3. Article 49, amend zoning bylaw, firearms business use.
Do you want the motion first?
Go ahead,
Yep.
yes.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town approve Article 49, amend zoning bylaw, firearms business use, as printed in the warrant, to amend the zoning bylaw to regulate firearms business uses by amending Section 1.3, definitions, Section 3.6, industrial district uses, Section 3.10, table of principal uses, and Section 8, special regulations, to add a new Section 8.11, firearms business uses, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of this bylaw be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the zoning bylaw.
I have a motion made and seconded under Article 49. Your Finance Committee recommendation is in the warrant, and we have a presentation from Ms. Ortiz.
So we're here to discuss the firearms business use zoning bylaw. So I'll start by just reviewing the purpose of the bylaw, a little bit about the bylaw creation process, and then we'll get into the heart of the bylaw itself, the language that's in there. So why are we considering this bylaw right now? Well, Stow has seen retail firearms business shops in Lower Village. The planning board recently fielded an application regarding gun manufacturing, and we know from other towns in the area that there is an interest in citing this use in towns in our region. The planning board also received a citizen's petition last fall that asked that the planning board prioritize the development of this bylaw. So it really feels like there's some momentum to regulate this use through zoning in Stow. So we know that we cannot prohibit firearms businesses in Stow. So because we cannot ban them, the planning board has looked to regulate them through zoning. The purpose of the bylaw is to establish reasonable criteria for citing this type of use. We also look at the process for permitting and ways that we can minimize adverse impacts on the abutting residents and the community at large. Just a little bit of that background. So back in August is when the planning board received that citizen's petition, and they've since reviewed multiple iterations of drafts of the bylaw. We've held a public information session, a public forum, a public hearing to really get more feedback from the residents on what you might want to see in this bylaw. And at the same time, we've worked closely with town council and with our local police department to make sure that this bylaw makes sense for Stow and will hold up with the state's Attorney's General office. So I'll just review a few of the key components of this bylaw. So first off, it sets up some definitions for us. And these are all aligned with the state's way of defining these uses. So we've pulled all of this from the state's general laws. So I'll just read off the definition for firearms business use, that we all know that we're talking about the same thing. So this is any retail or wholesale operation involving the purchase or sale of firearms or ammunition, the sale of firearm accessories in any amount, any retail or manufacturing operation involving the repairing, altering, cleaning, polishing, engraving, bluing, or performing of any mechanical operation on any firearm, as well as the sale of conversion devices that, when combined, create a firearm. The bylaw also creates location requirements. So in Stow, we're looking at only the industrial district. We also have set up a 500-foot buffer from uses that the planning board considers protected. So a buffer from the residential district itself, from any residential home, no matter the district you're in. So if you have a home within the industrial district, there is still a buffer for you. Other uses where children might reasonably congregate, churches, religious organizations, and trail networks. So the bylaw also limits this to one firearms business use per lot. So you cannot have two firearms businesses within the same building. They do have to be on separate properties. And so I'll pass this off to Michael to talk a little bit more about the location requirements and looking into the industrial district.
So the map that we have on the screen shows the industrial district. It is highlighted in that yellow color. I'll talk through a little bit about what's in some of these parcels. At the top of the screen, that first circle highlights the airport that's located within the industrial district. The parcel towards the middle, that's around the Bose site, and the parcel at the bottom of the screen is around Rock Bottom Farm, Perkins Farm. As Valerie mentioned, there are some parcels that don't fall within within an industrial use. Most of those are in a residential use because zoning does not equal land use. So from this map, from the previous one, a few parcels were removed. Those include the developments like Regency at Stow and the villages at Stow. Both of those used other mechanisms to get their development permitted. So these are the parcels that we currently have that are in industrial use at the moment. The next step that we did was that we applied that 500-foot buffer to see where within these parcels a firearms business could locate. So as you can see, these parcels, the area that the firearms business could locate within has reduced in size. So once again, this is the industrial district in its full existing boundaries, and this is the area that would be allowed for firearms businesses if this bylaw gets passed.
All right, and so lastly, the bylaw also establishes a special permit process. So this would be handled through a public hearing through the planning board. And this allows residents and the board to ask questions and talk about items like screening, operations and security, hours of operation, signage, lighting, any impacts on the neighborhood itself. The special permit would be valid for a period of 1 year, and it is granted to the business owner, not the property owner. So directly with the person who has the most intimate knowledge of how the business is functioning. The bylaw also sets up a process for revocation. So if the business is ever out of compliance with any state or federal guidelines or our own local zoning, the planning board would be allowed to call a public hearing and look into whether that special permit should be revoked. So just in conclusion, we know that we cannot ban firearms businesses outright in Stow, and so we are providing this bylaw in order to regulate their siting. So right now, without this bylaw in place, a retail establishment could open by right within the business district, and a manufacturing operation could open by right in the industrial district without the special permit process, without that transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. In the following debate, I'd like to ask that we divide comments by microphone. So I'll just arbitrarily say, comments in favor of the article, please go to what I'm calling the front microphone. Comments against, to the side microphone. If you're already in line, don't worry about it. And if you think your comments don't fit in either category, don't worry about it. Also, I have several amendments that have kindly been offered in writing. I appreciate that, in particular from one resident. At the time that the person approaches the microphone to make those amendments, you can either describe the amendments to town meeting yourself, or you can say, I move to amend section whatever in the form submitted to the moderator, and I'll do it for you. With that, front microphone.
Nancy Shepherd, Harvard Road, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay. These are actually, I just have two questions. You mentioned on the area, Bose, it would be an industrial area, but very near to Bose is that whole recreation area off Maple Street. So I assume that would not be, that would be protected because that's a place there are a lot of kids. And let me ask my second question too. Where other places that children might be found, libraries wasn't mentioned, the library, and I would hope that that would be specifically mentioned too, near it.
Ms. Ortiz.
Sure. So yes, the Stow Community Park that is off of Old Bolton Road would be provided that 500-foot buffer from the building that might hold a firearms business use. So that would be considered there. The library is not currently called out in the bylaw, though that is in the residential district far from the industrial district, so that might be why we did not specifically call out municipal buildings within the bylaw.
Thank you.
Front microphone, he was there. Well, actually, for balance, side microphone.
Ellen Sturgis, Canterbury Road. Just a quick question. Is there a pending application already? Did they, I can't remember if that had started, and if so, would that be exempt from this bylaw because it's already been filed?
Yes, there is a pending application. The planning board has closed the public hearing on that application for a gun use within the industrial district. The planning board has not yet issued a decision on it, though it would be considered only under the existing bylaws and not under this.
Front microphone.
5 Robert Road. I'm all in favor of making Stow as unappealing as possible to gun owners and gun shops. I have a couple questions about these bylaws. First of all, from what you said earlier, I think it better defines something, the definition is kind of missing in the bylaws as written, is what constitutes a lot. You're saying that a lot is a single building and only one gun shop is allowed per building. With the lots that are currently designated there, how many potential gun shops could there be, considering how many buildings currently exist on each of these sections? Secondly, can it be built into the bylaws that once a shop is up and operating, that it's subject to a certain amount of inspection by the police or other agencies, and that to make sure background checks are being made on anybody who's a purchaser? Can those be built into these bylaws, or does that have to be done separately?
Ms. Ortiz.
Thank you. I'll answer the second question first. So the question was about inspections. So we are only able to hold the firearms business uses to one annual inspection. We did consider the potential for additional inspections, though we were advised that that might not be legally permissible. The first question was on the limitation to one firearms business per lot. So the planning board has hesitated to guess at the number of businesses that could potentially be allowed because, as Michael was describing, we're really looking at the lots as they are today. So it's possible that a future business owner or property owner could subdivide a lot and therefore create more opportunity for this type of use. So this is the way, using the 500-foot buffer was seen as the best way to regulate in Stow.
Thank you. Side microphone.
Mr. Moderator, I would urge everybody in
Name
here,
and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tom Ryan, 453 Great Road, Stow. I would urge everybody in here to please defeat this article. I'm a big fan of the planning board. I think they do a great job. But in this case, I think it's been taken a couple steps too far. Preventing legitimate businesses in the business district doesn't make sense to me. The compact business district, the only place that a retail establishment for a legally usable or legally acceptable business is only in the industrial area now. Doesn't make sense to me. In addition, some of the definitions, you could actually say that somebody whose business is creating leather goods, they're not allowed anymore to make holsters for guns. They're not allowed to make belts that might be used to hold a gun. You can't, somebody who's an artist that does engraving wouldn't be allowed to do engraving because there might be a gun involved. There are just so many, it just seems so wrong. While I'm in favor and could support some restrictions, this just seems to go way, way too far. Thank you.
Thank you. Please keep track of comments you may want to make. I can't have you respond to every comment, but you'll have a chance. Front microphone.
Yeah, thank you. Lenny Golder, 67 Old Bolton Road. First, let me say that traditionally, local communities have had the right to regulate alcohol and tobacco, and now, given a recent court ruling, we're being given the same kind of right to regulate, not abolish, but regulate firearms, and I see that as a positive development. I have offered an amendment, and the amendment reads that gun shops shall not be allowed to display any of their merchandise outside of their shops.
Mr. Golder, you'll have to tell me where you want that amendment in this multi-page bylaw. And I will tell you that town council has reviewed and has kindly suggested that if it belongs anywhere, it's in 8.11.5.
I'll accept that. Sounds good to me, 8.11.5.
8.11.5 is quite long, but I'm going to assume that what you're saying is that you wouldn't mind a new, well, just a paragraph at the end of 8.11.5 before 8.11.6 saying what you have, right?
That'd be fine.
Would you like me to describe that? If everyone wants to turn to page 57 of their warrants, what Mr. Golder is proposing is language immediately above where it says 8.11.6 signage. He's proposing language that says, gun shops shall be required to keep all merchandise inside their shops and not on display outside. Is that correct, Mr. Golder?
That's correct.
And do you want to say briefly a word or two about why this is a good idea?
Yes. If people will recall, there was a gun shop in the lower village, and it was displaying a tank outside the shop. I don't know if it was for sale. I think it may have been just for display. But, and let me just say at the outset, I'm not opposed to tanks. We need them in warfare. They'd be appropriate in a historical museum, like at the Heritage Museum. I have no problem with that. I just don't think that's an appropriate use of a tank to have it outside of any kind of shop, especially, a gun shop. I think that gun shops can operate very well just by keeping the merchandise that's for sale within their shop. It raises issues of safety. I mean, I would not want to see like kids jumping up on the tank unsupervised.
Maybe time to wrap up, Mr. Golder.
Okay. So basically, I think it's just a common sense amendment. I don't think it would hurt a gun shop business.
And do I have a second to Mr. Golder's motion? I think I saw a second. I'll begin debate by asking, so we are now debating Mr. Golder's proposed amendment to 8.11.5. I'll begin debate by asking the planning board if they have any comment on this.
May I offer a comment?
You can go anywhere you want.
Mr.
Oh,
Moderator,
I'm sorry.
may I?
I'm so sorry. Yes,
you.
Ms. Ortiz.
I would ask that the language be revised to instead refer to firearms business uses rather than gun shops, and further that perhaps the language could align more with Chapter 140, Section 123, that no firearm, rifle, shotgun, or machine gun shall be displayed in any outer window of said premises or in any other place where it can be readily seen from the outside.
Have you written that down?
No.
Then, so Ms. Ortiz cannot make a motion to amend a motion. Does the mover accept that as a friendly amendment?
I'll accept it as a friendly amendment.
Does the seconder accept that as a friendly amendment? Yes. Then without objection, the motion is so amended. Thank you. Is there any further, I will ask counsel if she wants to add anything other than a helpful suggestion about where it goes. Counsel? Robin, anything to add? Okay. Any further debate on Mr. Golder's proposed amendment? Over here on the side, is it on the amendment? No, okay. There is no debate. We will go to a vote. The amendment, although the main motion requires 2/3, amending it only requires a majority. We'll do that with our cards. All those in favor of the motion to amend, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. The main motion is amended. And proceeding with debate, I forget where I was, but I think on the side microphone. Sir?
Buckman, Sudbury Road. The only thing missing in this bylaw is the word prohibited. You say you can permit the business, but it's being like regulated out of business. There's virtually no place where you can meet the 500-foot requirement. And you're just talking about an ordinary retail business, like a hardware store. They sell tools. A firearms business sells tools. specialized tools. And this bylaw change effectively prohibits the use of having a firearms store, which is a normal, clean, I use the word quiet, business for the town of Stow. It's not a firing range. You're just selling hardware is all it amounts to. Thank you.
Thank you. Front microphone.
Good morning or good afternoon. Mark Grubin, 68 Elmridge Road. I just have a question for the planning board. I didn't see anything in the article that describes any limitation on the size of the business. I understand that it's one building per lot, but is there any limitation to that? And if not, is that something that is possible to submit an amendment for, to include in the article, or would that be against the federal law?
Ms. Ortiz.
You're correct. The bylaw does not include any language regarding the size of a business use. When the planning board was developing this bylaw, we looked to 2 other towns that had their firearms business use bylaws successfully approved by the state. And I did not see language in those bylaws regarding size of the business itself. So I can't say whether it would be appropriate or approved at the state level. Thank you.
Thank you. Side microphone.
Pam Weathers, 89 West Acton Road, and I'm standing in support of this, but I have a question. Part of the bylaw says any places where children may gather. We have a lot of conservation land with many trails, and there are often a lot of people on those trails, including lots of children. Is that part of the concept of where, limitations? Because that's something that we all use a lot.
Ms. Ortiz.
Yes, you are absolutely right. So one of the requirements from that buffer includes proximity to a trail network for that precise reason. Thank you.
Front microphone.
Tracy Winslow, 6 Warren Road, number 2. I would like to discuss an amendment that I've submitted.
Yes, please. Which one?
8.11.4a. That is page 53.
So you are moving to amend section 8.11.4a. Would you like to state your amendment, or would you prefer I do that?
I'd like to state the amendment in addition to the list that specifies that the businesses cannot be close to elementary schools, childcare facilities, etc. I would like to add that there must also be a buffer zone around nursing homes and assisted living facilities, and I'd like to explain why I'm proposing that.
So what Ms. Winslow is moving to amend, if you turn to page 53 in your warrant, you'll see at the top section A and subsections in small Roman numerals. She is proposing to add a new small Roman numeral 8, nursing homes and assisted living facilities. Does she have a second for that? She has a second. You can explain briefly why you want to do that.
I'd like to give a content warning regarding suicide. So given that the purpose of this article is to address public safety concerns and to minimize adverse impact to the general welfare, health, and safety of the citizens of Stow, this sort of firearms business that wants to move to Stow after the town of Littleton effectively kicked them out provides parts that people can use to build guns, like building something from Legos. And I'm concerned about this because of the high rate of suicide of elders using firearms when my father was 70 years old, he died by suicide with a firearm. And I don't want anyone else to go through what I have gone through. Having a parent die by suicide is devastating. It is so much harder to deal with than a normal death because you always ask yourself questions. Could I have prevented this? And as we all know, Stow has a significant population of senior citizens. And so in 2021 and 2022, according to a a study by the CDC that was released in November 2023, people 75 years of age and older had the highest suicide rate of all age groups in America. And firearms are the most common method of suicide by elder men. They were involved in at least 3/4 of suicides of men 65 and older. And nearly all suicide attempts using firearms are fatal.
30 seconds.
And so one of the reasons that older men are more likely to suicide, beyond physical illness, which was a significant part of why my father suicided, is they found their identity through their work, and also a lot of them are more comfortable with guns because many of them are military veterans. And so having these businesses close to places where people who have physical disabilities and may be disconnected socially is extremely dangerous.
Thank you. I think we should let people tell us what they want to talk about at this point. Do I have any debate on the amendment? This is debate on the amendment, not on the main motion. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the amendment offered by Ms. Winslow to section 8.11.4a, please signify by raising your cards. Thank you. And those opposed? The amendment clearly passes. And do I have any further debate? Front microphone.
Just a quick question. The special granting authority, is that a separate organization, or is that could you define how that works?
Ms. Ortiz.
Yes, so in the zoning bylaw, special permit granting authority can refer to either the Zoning Board of Appeals or the Planning Board. For this bylaw, it's identified as the Planning Board.
Side microphone. A little closer to the mic, I think.
Eben Jensen, 19 Weldon Lane. I want to know, can we increase the 500 feet? Is that the maximum you can do in the amendment?
Where are you proposing? If you want to amend
any of
it,
these areas, the 500 feet, it's a question. Can you increase that amount?
you could get a form from the town clerk and write down where you want everything increased to 500. And that would be offered
Well,
as an amendment.
Right now, these are the areas that have 500 feet. The question is, can you go higher than 500 feet?
Legally?
Yeah.
That's from Ms. Ortiz.
So again, the planning board was able to review bylaws that have been approved by the state's attorney general office, and so it was the 500-foot buffer was the only amount that was included in those successful bylaws. So as far as I know, it is safest to keep it to 500 in case the AG's office sees it as too prohibitive otherwise.
Front microphone.
Yes, Susan Coles, Boxborough Road. On page 55, they mention insurance liability that the firearms would have to carry. And it seems almost like an honor system where they would be required to notify people 30 days if their insurance is going to expire or they're not going to pay their coverage. And I see this as a possible way for things to fall through the cracks because there's sort of a honor system, and we know with people with restrictions required by the courts to not approach somebody that they've been harassing, that it's only worth the paper it's written on that people follow those what do they call them? Those restraining orders. I had a senior moment. I was wondering whether there'd be a way to make it so that the police force could check at any time with the insurance companies that are covering these guys to make sure that they are fully paid up and have their insurance coverage, because Otherwise, they might allow something to lapse, and with only an annual inspection allowed, how would we know that they're not paying through the nose for possible trouble that they'd be causing later? Okay, thank you.
Ms. Ortiz. Oh. Ms. Demkowski.
I would like to comment on that. So when we require liability insurance from businesses for certain purposes, we require the town to be an additional insured, which means the insurance company themselves would have to notify the town directly on any lapse of coverage, any cancellation of policy. We do not rely on the business holder to give us that information.
Thank you. Before we go any further, council has suggested that in Ms. Winslow's prior amendment, rather than be nursing homes and assisted living facilities, the language should track what's already in the zoning bylaw and say nursing homes and independent adult living residents. Would anyone care to make that motion? And if so, all you have to say is so moved. Is there a second? Do I have unanimous consent to have the prior amendment be amended to reflect that language? That means no objection. Terrific. Thank you. Front microphone. Ms. Winslow, you're up again.
I would like to discuss my amendment to 8.11.5, 5 section 4. So currently that reads that the firearms business can essentially operate between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Mondays through Fridays. I would like to amend that to 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. I think that it contributes to public safety to have more of these transactions occur during daylight.
So, and just to clarify, what Ms. Winslow is proposing is on page 56 of your warrant. And just about the middle of the page, small Roman numeral 4, you will see 4 lines down, 9 p.m. She is proposing to change that to 6 p.m. Is that correct, Ms. Winslow?
Yes.
Does she have a second? Motion, so that we have a motion to amend, made and seconded, to amend 8 a.m. and after 9 p.m. to 8 a.m. and after 6 p.m. Debate on that amendment. I think first I will ask the planning board or Ms. Ortiz if they have any problem with that. Council want to make any remarks? No, and there is no amendment. We'll go to a vote on the proposed amendment to change it to 6 p.m. Is this a comment on the amendment? Okay.
Kathleen Papelchek, Old Bolton Road. I would tend to vote against this. I do support restrictions on firearms and these businesses in town. But if we go to the point of making rules that are significantly different from other standard retail practices, we risk having the amendment found not in compliance on some way, shape, or form. And I think keeping a normal business hour requirement is probably in our best interest.
Thank you. Any further debate on the amendment? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. Again, the amendment requires a simple majority. The question is the amendment to change it to 6 p.m. All those in favor, please signify by raising your cards. And those opposed. The amendment fails. We are back to debating the main motion, and I believe I was at the side microphone.
Bill Maxfield, 89 Walcott Street. If that map is what is the result of voting for yes for this amendment, if you look at the bottom yellow, that is the Perkins Farm. That is not Gleasondale Mill. Is that correct?
Ms. Ortiz?
Yes, that is correct.
So the mill is out of the picture. Gleasondale Farm, somebody is totally off the road. Somebody's going to have to buy the farm just to set up a retail store. The middle one is behind Radant. As it exists today, they would have to sell their back lot to do that. And the larger area is residential that is going to be built within the next year. And so that means that I don't know if any of that is on Bo's property, where the Bo's property would have to buy that lot and then put a thing. Therefore, from what I understand, the only legitimate place that you're going to have a retail ability is at the airport. And then my question is, can it be within the existing retail, or would it have to be in land that is far enough away from those establishments like the restaurant? And therefore, we are basically, through this amendment, eliminating it, and which is, I think, the reason for all of this work.
Thank you. Front microphone.
Unless there are further amendments to be discussed, I call the question. Guy Washburn, 35 Red Acre Road.
Thank you. A motion, is there a second to call in the question? The oven timer that went off that marked the 30 minutes beyond which I will accept a motion to call the question. Motion to call the question is non-debatable and requires 2/3. I understand that the technology gods have smiled on us and that we can use the clickers, correct? So we will try using the clickers.
Mr. Moderator, point of order.
No, well, all right, point of order.
There are at least 2 more amendments to discuss.
Yes, that is not a point of order, and they only get discussed if they come up during debate. So proceeding, are we ready to proceed with this? So a motion to call the question requires 2/3. We will use the clickers, and voting will be open for 15 seconds, beginning now. Beginning now. If you voted, vote again.
Okay. Yep.
We are getting votes. And voting is closed. And the vote total just disappeared on me. By a vote of 92 to 18, the motion to call the question passes. Proceeding to a vote on the main motion on Article 49, this also requires 2/3 because it is an amendment of the zoning bylaw. Once again, we will test the kindness of the technology gods and we will use the clickers. Voting will be open for 15 seconds. Are you ready, Ron? Everything good? Voting will be open for 15 seconds. There is no debate at this point.
I just need a clarification. There are some amendments that might come up if we vote yes to, what
So when we closed off debate, we closed off the possibility of any more amendments. There are no amendments pending.
Okay.
There were amendments that perhaps someone had intended to offer, but before she could get a chance to do that, town meeting decided to cut off debate. So now we are proceeding to a vote on the merits of the main motion under Article 49. Also requires 2/3, using our clickers, and voting is open beginning now. That passes, right? And voting is closed. And by a vote of 89 to 20, the motion passes. Thank you. Now, before we get to our last and arguably most important motion, I did want to note at the town clerk's behest that early voting for next week's elections is open on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 9 to 3 on Monday and from 9 to 7 p.m. on Tuesday and Wednesday at Town Building. And I also wanted to recognize that 2 elected officials have chosen not to run for re-election, and I want to give them some recognition. Maura Seiler of the Randall Library Trustees and Karen Devine of the Neshoba Regional School District Committee. And please join me in expressing our appreciation for their service to the town. Thank you. And with that, Ms. Frazier, I'm ready for our last motion. You want to, okay.
Mr. Moderator, I move to adjourn the meeting to the town election on May 18th, 2024, commencing at 10 a.m. at Center School in said town of Stow, and then and there to act on Article 50 for such election of officers and ballot question as listed in the warrant, and thereafter, at the close of the polls, to dissolve this meeting.
All those in favor, please raise your cards, and those against. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming out on this beautiful day for town meeting.